Chapter 828. When Yi Qinghan and the others returned to the humble village, they saw a group of practitioners kneeling outside the village. The hunters were shocked. These were the famous experts within 1,000-li radius, or rather, they were bandits from the Drifting Cloud stronghold. Some of them were experts from the Tai family village, and they were all famous experts. At this moment, they were all kneeling here, and even their clothes had been stripped off. Yi Qinghan did not even need to think, he knew that it was done by Emperor Yi and the others. They were bored, so it was normal for them to meet some bandits to vent their anger. Esteemed Lord, we cannot offend this group of people. Otherwise, if they take revenge, our humble village will be finished. Yang Zhan said in horror. No matter, let's return to the village. Before I leave, I will remove the power behind them. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Yang Zhan looked at the several peak lesser god priests kneeling on the ground and could not help but feel a chill. Yang Zhan. You have big guts. If the second master knows, he will definitely slaughter your entire village. The strongest among them was a middle-level god priest. At this moment, he was looking at Yang Zhan and the villagers of the humble village with resentment. He didn't dare to vent his anger on Emperor Yi and the others, but he dared to threaten the humble village. Humph! Yi Qinghan groaned and launched a soul attack, quietly extinguishing that person's soul. That person's head tilted and directly fell to the ground. The remaining dozens of people did not dare to threaten Yang Zhan anymore. Yi Qinghan looked at the hunters who were trembling with fear. They did not dare to offend this so-called Drifting Cloud stronghold. He knew that if this stronghold was not destroyed, they would not be able to celebrate the New Year celebration. He frowned and lifted up a bandit with good cultivation. His divine sense forcefully entered the bandit's sea of consciousness and plundered his memories. After finding the location of this stronghold, he said, "You guys go back to the village first, I will be back soon." Before Yang Zhan and the others could react, Yi Qinghan killed this group of people with a single slash of his blade and turned around to leave. 3,000 miles away, white snow covered the land. Numerous mountain peaks stood tall and straight. This was the headquarters of the Flowing Cloud Citadel, which was home to hundreds of experts, ranging from paragon gods to ordinary lackeys. They controlled an area of thousands of kilometers, and enslaved the villagers to gather resources for them. Every year, they paid protection fees and taxes to the villagers. The will of the Flowing Cloud stronghold was the will of the villagers within a radius of a few thousand miles. The villagers could not unite, so they could only be bullied. The Flowing Cloud stronghold had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, but until now, no one had been able to shake their position. The Flowing Cloud stronghold naturally had someone backing it, otherwise, it would have already been swallowed up by other bandit strongholds. With countless villagers to enslave, the people of Flowing Cloud stronghold could obtain a large amount of cultivation resources without leaving the mountain. Even if it was winter, they did not have to worry about food. It was the New Year celebration, so they were singing and dancing. The second leader, Han Yu, was a middle-aged man. His cultivation was at the high level of the superior god priest, second only to the leader of the Drifting Cloud stronghold. Half of his face was covered by a beard. At this moment, he was hugging a few young women. They were all dressed in simple clothes. They should be the village girls who were forcibly abducted. My fifth brother brought some people to the humble village a few days ago. Why hasn't he come back yet? Have you sent people to investigate? Han Yu's rough voice sounded. He glared at the few spies below. Second leader, we are sending people to investigate. The humble village is a small place. The fifth master will definitely be fine. I think he is having fun in some village. He will probably come back tomorrow. You don't have to worry. The two spies quickly said. Well, after you find them, ask him to bring me a few female cultivators with good cultivation. You can leave now. Han Yu waved his hand to signal the spies to leave. He then hugged a few women and moved his big hands around them. Those women were all village girls. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. They kept screaming, but Han Yu gave them a few slaps on the face. If you don't cooperate, I will destroy your whole village. Han Yu threatened in a stern voice. The women did not dare to speak. They did not even dare to move. They just let Han Yu do it. However, the spies had just left for a few moments when they hurriedly rushed in again. Second leader, it's not good. Someone is fighting their way up the mountain. The spies quickly knelt and said. Bastard! Can't you see that I am busy? If someone is fighting their way up the mountain, then kill him. What are you doing here? Han Yu's mood was ruined. He immediately shouted angrily. He is too strong. He is already halfway up the mountain. His attacks are ruthless. Until now, he has not left a single survivor. The spies hurriedly said. Halfway up the mountain, Yi Qinghan carried Zhong Kuang and wandered around aimlessly. He killed anyone he saw. He did not even ask a single question, nor did he answer the questions of the bandits. The corpses rolled down the slope. There were only a few hundred bandits in total. Yi Qinghan had killed half of them. He did not even take the universe rings from the corpses. He just walked away after killing them. Han Yu rushed out of the main hall. When he was halfway up the mountain, he looked at Yi Qinghan and angrily asked, How dare you offend my flowing cloud stronghold? Don't you know that our boss is a disciple of the Water Sword sect? Boom! His reply was Yi Qinghan's sudden attack. His saber cut through the air and killed more than 10 powerhouses behind Han Yu. Even Han Yu did not manage to escape. His body was sliced in half at the waist. A destructive aura spread to his limbs and bones. He was a high and mighty high god, but he did not even have the chance to struggle. His eyes were wide open, and he died with a grievance. I don't know. Yi Qinghan stepped over Han Yu's corpse and said calmly. He then continued walking up the mountain. A powerful aura was awakening at the top of the mountain. His cultivation level was actually half-step lord level. Ha ha ha. I've finally broken through to half-step lord level. With a roar, an old man in his 50s charged out of the mountain. His hair was black and white, and his aura was quite impressive. However, having just broken through to half-step lord level, he could not control his current cultivation level well. He was the great boss of the Drifting Cloud Stronghold, the famous Lu Yun. He was also a disciple of the Water Sword sect, the most powerful sect in Hanqing County. He collected resources for the Water Sword sect and exchanged them for contribution points. As long as he had 100,000 contribution points, he could become an inner sect disciple of the Water Sword sect and listen to a Lord's sermon. Currently, he had already exchanged them for 90,000 contribution points, and his cultivation level was now half-step lord level. He was extremely excited, but he did not know that extreme joy could turn into sorrow. He bumped into Yi Qinghan as soon as he came out of closed-door cultivation. Who are you? Why are you behaving atrociously in my Drifting Cloud Stronghold? Lu Yun questioned coldly with a frown. I'm Death. Naturally, I've come to the Drifting Cloud Stronghold to take your life. Yi Qinghan mocked him with a smile. He suddenly moved in a flash and unleashed 50% of his combat strength. He turned into 10,000 afterimages and surrounded Lu Yun. His attacks were ruthless, and each strike was fatal. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the space shattered continuously. Before the miserable Lu Yun could even show off his cultivation base, Yi Qinghan hacked him into pieces. His vigorous qi and blood instantly dried up, and he died without a complete corpse. Lu Yun did not even know why he had died. His broken body fell to the ground, and he could not get up. His blood dimmed and seeped into the ground. Yi Qinghan still did not let go. Instead, he extended his divine consciousness into the drifting cloud stronghold and killed all the several hundred people in the bandit lair. Not a single one was spared. The large group of slaves was so shocked by Yi Qinghan's cold aura that they dared not speak. They fled in panic. Yi Qinghan turned around and returned to Humble Village. That day, news of the bandit lair being wiped out spread throughout Hanqing County. Some people were happy, while others were sad. However, the most powerful sect in Hanqing County, the Water Sword sect, was furious. Chapter 829. The news of Drifting Cloud Camp's destruction spread like wildfire. Everyone within 100 miles was excited. The eve of the celebration was so festive, with lanterns and decorations everywhere. Little did they know that as long as the Water Sword sect was still alive, Drifting Cloud Camp could easily support 100 more puppets. With Yi Qinghan's return, anyone from the humble village who had the slightest bit of intelligence would know that Yi Qinghan had massacred the Flowing Cloud stronghold. All of them came to the outskirts of the village to wait. They treated Renhuang Yi and the others like they were true supreme gods. They took out the best spirit fruits to entertain them. The fruits were very rare. Emperor Yi and the others ate them, but they didn't feel that they were precious. Instead, the divine kingdoms they took out made the children envious, and the hunters drooled. Emperor Yi and Dong Qin were both very rich. There was no need to mention Emperor Yi, but Dong Qin had the celestial treasure battle physique. Ordinary things wouldn't even enter her eyes. Anything that she could take out would be enough to allow her to have a meteoric rise. The two most talented children in the humble village, a boy and a girl, were only around 12 years old. However, in a single night, she had nurtured them to become lesser gods. Their godheads were even superior godheads. The boy was called Yang Hu, and the girl was called Yang Yu. They were blood-related siblings. Their mother was the only one left in the family. Their father had died in battle while hunting. The entire village watched excitedly as Yang Hu and Yang Yu's cultivation soared. They were so excited that they did not know what to do. For someone with the celestial battle body, this was a piece of cake. Otherwise, Zixian wouldn't have asked her to help him become a supreme god. Only someone with the celestial battle body had the qualifications to push Zixian to the supreme god level. Yi Qinghan couldn't do it. He himself might not even reach that level. Yi Qinghan stepped into the training field of the village. The dozens of corpses had already been cleaned up. Yang Zhan and Yang Hu came to greet him, unable to hide their joy. Master, you've worked hard. We've been living in an abyss of suffering. Drifting Cloud Camp has squeezed us dry every year. Sigh. Yang Zhan said sadly. It's fine. There won't be a Drifting Cloud Camp or a Water Sword sect in the future. Let's have a good celebration, Yi Qinghan said calmly. A grand sect that even had a sovereign actually relied on exploiting the common people to survive. Yi Qinghan definitely couldn't stand such a sect. So what if it had a sovereign? How could the combined forces of four monstrous geniuses fail to kill a master god? Yang Zhan and *************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Within a radius of several thousand kilometers, it was a colossal existence. Yet Yi Qinghan said it did not exist and it did not exist. Just how strong were his foundations? However, Yang Zhan felt that it was best not to ask about this matter. The more he knew, the worse it would be for the humble village. The group returned to the village. Yi Qinghan and the others had never celebrated with the ordinary villagers, so they felt a different kind of feeling. Yi Qinghan looked at the starry sky and suddenly missed the endless plains. He wanted to go back to Owl Warstar to accompany his mother and children. Emperor Yi looked at Yi Qinghan in a daze. He stepped forward and held his arm. He rested his head on Yi Qinghan's broad shoulder and said gently, "All of a sudden, I've thought it through. I want to go back to the Qin clan to take a look. I want to go back to Shaoyun planet to take a look. Emperor Ye's surname was Qin, and the blood of the Qin family still flowed in his veins. Even though his heart belonged to Yi Qinghan, he still missed him deeply. He still had some feelings for the Qin family. Back then, whether or not Qin had used her to divert the world's attention from her brother, or whether he had truly been good to her, Emperor Yi was still grateful to her. If not for her, she might not have lived to meet Yi Qinghan. When a person grew up and reached a high and mighty level, looking back, many things could be let go. Emperor Yi let go, and his heart was filled with happiness. He no longer felt that the world was cold and indifferent. Yi Qinghan smiled and pulled Emperor Yi into his arms. He nodded and said, I also want to go back and take a look. Most of my old friends from back then should have left. After Yi Qinghan nodded in agreement, Emperor Yi smiled like a blooming flower. The divine bird's bones were sore from the two's display of affection. It shook its head and left, singing and dancing with the villagers. On the eve of the annual celebration, coupled with the destruction of Drifting Cloud's stronghold, the villagers were abnormally excited. It was to the point of staying up all night. In addition to the dozen or so corpses of tiger-bear beasts, it was enough for all the villagers to eat for an entire winter. The snowy moon grew bigger and bigger, and Yang Hu and Yang Yu's cultivation continued to rise. Before daybreak, they had already rushed into the realm of Middle God. The spiritual energy of the divine kingdom in their bodies raged, constantly transforming into divine power and rushing into their godhoods. Dong Qin looked at her masterpiece and smiled happily. The nearby villagers were immediately mesmerized, and even the women were subdued by her charm. Suddenly, Yang Yu gave a muffled groan, and her body exploded. Her skin, which could be broken with a flick of a finger, was stained with blood. She then fell into a pool of blood, alarming the villagers. Yang Yu was only a 12-year-old child, but after being catalyzed by the divine fruit, she seemed to have grown up to 7 or 8 years old in a short night. She had become a slender and elegant young lady about 1.6 meters tall. She had the simplicity of a villager, but also the temperament of a fairy. Now that she had fallen, how could everyone not be shocked? Dong Qin was astonished. She had personally witnessed her and Yang Hu's breakthrough, so nothing should have happened. Why did Yang Yu suddenly lose control and stain her divine body with blood? Soon, Dong Qin examined Yang Yu and didn't find any problems. However, her body had become extremely weak at the moment, and even the wounds on her body couldn't heal. Zixian was also helpless. Yi Qinghan was alarmed. He brought Emperor Yi to the martial arts field in the village and saw Yang Yu's body twitching as if she was in extreme pain. He reached out to touch Yang Yu's arm and couldn't help but frown. Taoist Dong Qin, what did you feed her? Yi Qinghan asked in astonishment. Drunken god fruit, this is a first-rate divine medicine. It doesn't have any side effects. Look, even Yang Hu is fine. Dong Qin guaranteed. Yi Qinghan couldn't care less. He mobilized the wood element to protect Yang Yu's heart and veins and used his powerful life force to heal her wounds. However, her wounds couldn't heal at all. Even if they healed, they would immediately rupture. This is the rarely seen white blood 9 physique. Her physical body is extremely weak. Once her body is damaged, a large area will shatter and there's no way to repair it. It's a miracle that she's still alive. Yi Qinghan discovered the source of the problem and was rather shocked. This was because the white blood 9 physique was too rare, so rare that one couldn't be encountered in an epoch. Moreover, those that could be used were even rarer. Yi Qinghan had never heard of the white blood 9 physique before, but the secret history that the second sorcerer had given him mentioned the 10 great physiques. The white blood 9 physique was the most unlucky physique. This type of blood was a spiritually connected supreme treasure, but it was almost impossible for such a physique to survive. The white blood 9 physique wasn't bad. It was a special physique after all, but it wasn't suitable for fighting. Once injured, one could only wait for death. However, if one cultivated to the over-god level, their combat strength would definitely be comparable to the 10 great physiques. Chapter 830. Yang Yu's blood was a supreme treasure, an important element for some top experts to see through life and death. In the primal chaos era, there was a white-blooded nine-yin body who had cultivated to the over-god level. His combat prowess was superb, and he could escape unscathed even with the white-blooded nine-yin body. However, he was forced to commit suicide by the over-god, unwilling to compromise and give his blood to the over-god for research. To this day, no one had truly become immortal. The primal chaos sorcerer god was dead, the great demonic god was suppressed, and the first-generation heavenly treasure battle body had died of old age. Who would dare to claim that they were immortal? The white-blooded nine-yin body was the only hope to this day. It could allow one to see through life and death and become immortal. It was rumored that when the white-blooded nine-yin body was cultivated to the highest level, one could transform into a red spider lily and travel between the yin and yang. Meanwhile, the over-god could refine the blood of the white-blooded nine-yin body and successfully see through life and death. The life and death that the over-god spoke of was not the death of the Tartarus. In that kind of death, one's soul would still exist, and one could even refine one's blood to be reborn. The life and death that the over-god spoke of was complete death and complete immortality. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment and decided to save this life. Whether or not her blood could truly make one immortal, at least she was still alive. Yi Qinghan pulled Yang Yu out of thin air and poured the wood essence in his body into Yang Yu's body, saving her life. When the sun rose and the celebration officially began, Yi Qinghan transferred 90% of his wood essence to Yang Yu, leaving only 10% for himself. If he wanted to recover to his peak, he would need at least 10 years of bitter cultivation. However, the life force formed from the wood essence forcibly healed Yang Yu's wounds. Her blood stopped flowing, and her skin became translucent, flowing with divine light, making her appear more agile. This kind of body cannot be injured, not even the slightest external wound. Otherwise, even I can't do anything. If you want to save her life, it's best to have a complete crystal of wood essence. Yi Qinghan exhaled and said in a low voice. I have it. Without the slightest hesitation, Dong Qin took out a translucent crystal that contained a terrifying amount of life energy. Wood represented life, and a crystal formed from the essence of wood was a crystal of life. Let alone sovereigns, even over-gods would fight over a supreme treasure like this. However, Dong Qin took it out. It was about the size of a fist, with a needle-sized hole in the middle. It was wrapped by a thin thread, but that thread was completely negligible. She hung the origin crystal on the unconscious Yang Yu. What? Are you going to train her? Yi Qinghan was quite surprised. The celestial treasure battle body was really generous to be willing to give away such a supreme treasure. This was not the wood origin in his body, which could be repaired after a period of bitter cultivation. If he gave away the wood origin crystal, it would belong to Yang Yu. It's fate that brought us together, so I'll just give it to her. I'm confident that no one can beat me to the point where I need the wood origin crystal to save my life. If it really comes to that point, this crystal alone won't be able to save my life. Dong Qin said indifferently. Ahem, if you sell this to some old monster whose life has come to an end, I'm afraid he'll be willing to pay any price. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Dong Qin shrugged and said disdainfully, as long as I want the supreme treasure of the world, there's nothing I can't find. I don't need to use this thing to exchange for it. Braggart. The parrot suddenly ran out and sneered disdainfully. You want to get beaten up? Don't think that just because you're a spirit-devouring parrot, you can get all the treasures in the world. Remember, a bird will always be a bird. At most, you'll be called a divine bird. In front of me, you're nothing. Dong Qin snorted coldly. At this time, Yang Hu officially broke through to the mid-level divine priest realm, but he also sucked dry the divine medicine in his body. This talent could only be regarded as above average, not even superior. Otherwise, with the effect of the drunken god fruit, it would be very easy to cultivate a high god. Yang Yu stretched and opened her eyes in confusion. She didn't know that she had died once, but because of the support of Yi Qinghan's wood origin, her cultivation directly rose to the great circle of high god realm. In other words, she was now a part of Yi Qinghan, but her battle strength couldn't reach the great circle of high god realm. After all, she didn't cultivate any secret arts and had no combat experience, so she was still very weak. "Sister, what's wrong? Why are you all looking at me?" Yang Yu's peerless face revealed a simple and naive look. After all, she was still a 12-year-old child. Yi Qinghan and the others looked at each other and didn't say anything about her situation. Now, the only ones who knew about Yang Yu's true constitution were Yi Qinghan and the other three. Yang Zhan and the others had been driven outside long ago. "It's okay, Yang Yu. You have to cultivate the secret arts for a while, but don't hurt yourself, not even a little bit," Dong Qin said in a deep voice. "Oh." Yang Yu nodded woodenly. Although she didn't understand, she knew that Dong Qin wouldn't harm her. "Yang Hu, you have to protect your sister during this time. This is the secret art I prepared for you. You can't come out and walk around until you understand it." Dong Qin had put in a lot of effort to cultivate the brother and sister. She actually took out a book of high god level secret arts and gave it to Yang Hu. Yang Hu respectfully received the secret art, but he didn't know how valuable it was. Yi Qinghan naturally had no interest in fighting with Dong Qin, even if he had to pay more than half of the wood origin crystal. The annual celebration had arrived, and all the villages in the vicinity were celebrating. However, Yi Qinghan was exhausted. He entered his courtyard and prepared to regulate his breathing and restore his wood origin. However, more than 10 figures charged toward the humble village from the drifting cloud fortress. They had already deduced Yi Qinghan's trajectory. For half-step lords had joined forces and brought more than 10 high gods to a place not far from the humble village. Zixian and Emperor Yi sensed it in advance and soared into the sky, blocking the group of people outside a mountain in front of the humble village. They stared at the group of middle-aged men. They were all dressed the same, so they must have come from the same sect. The Water Sword sect was the only one in Hanqing County who could have such a powerful organization. Emperor Yi and Violet Deity frowned as they looked at the dozen or so large men. Before they could even open their mouths to speak, the leader of the other party shouted, "This small place in the middle of nowhere definitely does not have any experts. These two have such high cultivation levels, so they are definitely in cahoots with that person. Let's capture these two first." Boom! The group of people didn't even give Emperor Yi a chance to speak. They charged toward him with swords in hand. Emperor Yi was furious. With a flip of his hand, he pulled out the Sun-Moon Divine Sword and Star Saber. He exerted a little force, and the divine robes wrapped around the sword and saber were shattered. The force shot into the sky, shattering the mountain rocks and sweeping forward. The dozen or so high gods and 2 half-step lords who were charging at the front were killed on the spot. Their corpses turned into a bloody mist that dyed half the sky red. Only the 2 half-step lords were left standing where they were in a daze, not knowing what to do. Chapter 831. Incorrect chapter numbers. Corrected now. Content is continuous. The two from the Water Sword sect were scared silly by Emperor Ye's strength. They hurriedly took a few steps back and said in a panic, "Sir, you've misunderstood. We've mistaken you for someone else. We're the deacons of the Water Sword sect. Please spare us this once for the sect master's sake." However, Emperor Yi did not think that they had mistaken him for someone else. They were looking for Yi Qinghan. Otherwise, they would not have mobilized so many experts for the humble village. "Who are you looking for?" Emperor Yi asked coldly. "We're looking for a young man. He killed our disciples. We've misunderstood. Sir, I'm sure you're not a local. We have a lord in the water sword sect. One of them seemed to be apologizing, but he was actually threatening Emperor Yi. The sect master of the water sword sect was indeed a lord, but he was of inferior quality among lords. That Lord Divine Spark had been refined by someone before him, and its grade was very low. Furthermore, he had refined it again, so his combat strength was even lower. However, the two from the water sword sect did not know that with Emperor Yi, Zixian, and the others working together, killing a lord like that would be extremely easy. Emperor Yi snorted and asked, "Is the Drifting Cloud Village your people?" "That's right." The person replied proudly, even intimidating Emperor Yi with the name of a lord. "Looks like we can't keep the water sword sect around." Emperor Yi muttered and swung his star saber at the person. Zixian opened her eyes, and time froze. The two of them could not move at all. Emperor Ye's individual combat strength surpassed Yi Qinghan's, at least for now. It even surpassed all half-step lords. How could the two of them be a match for her? A saber gleam flashed, and the two of them were wiped out right away. The 10-odd people from the water sword sect were wiped out before they could even see Yi Qinghan. Their life cards were all shattered, and a huge commotion broke out in the water sword sect, which was tens of thousands of kilometers away. 5 half-step lords and 10-odd exalted gods had actually met with trouble in a remote village. Even the lord of the water sword sect, LV Junyi, had been alerted. LV Junyi was already on the verge of collapse. If it weren't for the fact that he had coincidentally obtained a substandard sovereign divine spark, he would have died long ago. After obtaining the sovereign divine spark, he had wantonly expanded his territory, and the entire Hanqing County had become his sphere of influence. He was ruthless and merciless, killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. He had caused fear and trepidation in the hearts of the people, and yet he continued to act as he pleased, not caring in the slightest about the lives of the common people. LV Junyi, whose face was full of wrinkles, looked at the 3 elders of the water sword sect with a frown and asked coldly, "Where did they go? Why did they die at the same time?" Great Elder Xuefeng's face was also ugly. After thinking for a moment, he said, "There was a problem with the flowing cloud stronghold. It was uprooted by a young man, and the entire stronghold, more than 1,000 people, were killed. According to our spies, this person was in the humble village. I ordered them to execute this person on the spot and destroy the humble village. To be able to wipe out 5 half-step lords and 10-odd exalted gods at the same time, that person must have a powerful background. However, a powerful dragon cannot defeat a snake in its old haunts. He dared to kill the deacons of the water sword sect, so he doesn't take me seriously. Come with me." LV Junyi's killing intent flashed, and he got up and walked out. The entire humble village was still celebrating, singing and dancing. Large amounts of meat were being barbecued, and the aroma could be smelled from far away. Yi Qinghan had already begun to regulate his breathing. He had swallowed a large number of divine pills and medicines, and his wood origin was rapidly recovering. Although Emperor Yi and Zixian had killed the people of the water sword sect, they did not tell Yi Qinghan, nor did they tell the people of the humble village. They hoped that they would celebrate the new year happily. At that moment, the 3 beauties could not help smiling as they watched the villagers of the humble village celebrate happily from the periphery. Yang Yu was extremely obedient. She followed Dong Qin, and her cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. The wood origin crystal hanging around her neck continuously supplied her with life essence, slowly changing her physical body. It could not cure the fatal weakness of the white blood Nine body, but it could at least reduce the chances of her being injured. Time flew by. That night, LV Junyi led the 3 grand elders and appeared near the humble village. Emperor Yi sensed in advance and immediately informed Dong Qin and Zixian. The 3 did not have time to inform Yi Qinghan, so they rushed to the opposite side of the mountain and stopped LV Junyi's group 10 li away. LV Junyi's eyes lit up when he saw the 3 beauties. He thought to himself, what exquisite women. Their vitality is abnormally strong. If I can harvest their yin to replenish my yang, I might be able to return to my youthful state. Attack, capture these three alive. LV Junyi immediately said. Boom. Without saying a word, LV Junyi took the lead. The majesty of a sovereign god suppressed the will of the great Tao. His aura soared through the galaxy, shattered the mountain, and rushed towards the humble village. Even the slightest aftershock could destroy the humble village. The terrifying aura caused the excited villagers of the humble village to fall into despair. They looked at the aftershock coming from outside the village in horror, waiting for death. Yi Qinghan was suddenly awakened from his meditation. He instantly erupted with a terrifying aura that rushed into the 9 heavens, forcefully blocking the aftershock outside the village. The humble village shone brightly, forming a giant rainproof barrier. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stood up and walked out of the courtyard. He saw Emperor Yi conjure a giant chaos dragon. With a furious roar, it shattered mountains and rivers. Its giant tail smashed towards the 4 powerhouses, causing cracks to appear in the stable upper space. Freeze! Zixian swiped 2 fingers across her eyes, and a beam of astonishment shot out from her eyes. Emperor Yi had never seen her erupt like this. At that moment, he could clearly sense that even LV Junyi's figure had frozen. It was as if time had stopped, but she was not affected. Boom! The figures of the 4 powerhouses froze, but Emperor Yi did not stop attacking. The giant tail shattered space and time, directly smashing towards them from the edge of the universe. It smashed the 4 of them into the ground. The ground cracked, and blood splattered across the galaxy. Apart from LV Junyi, the 3 half-step sovereigns only managed to let out a blood-curdling cry. Their life origins were completely suppressed by the chaos aura, and they died on the spot. Yi Qinghan defended the humble village with all his might. He was pushed back several steps by the force of the aura, and the outer defenses of the humble village were reduced to nothing. You damn thing! LV Junyi's flesh and blood splattered from Emperor Ye's tail. He roared furiously, and the frozen space was shattered by Emperor Yi. He shot into the sky and formed a seal with his hands, suppressing the 3 beauties. Use the Sun-Moon Divine Sword and the Star Saber to kill him. Zixian's face was distorted by the force of the aura, and her legs were twisted. At that moment, she knew that Emperor Yi could not kill a lord with just his Chaos Dragon's origin. He could only kill LV Junyi by relying on the origin of his 2 battle constitutions. Ignite my origin. Spacetime, freeze. Spurt. Zixian used her trump card once again. She even used the Purple Emperor's forbidden technique, burning her life origin as the price to completely freeze the space above her. It was like a universal barrier that could not be broken, causing her to cough up blood on the spot. However, LV Junyi's figure was targeted once again. This made him feel even more despair and fear than before. Impossible. Only LV Junyi's brain could move. He could not even move a single strand of hair. Only fear filled his mind, and he could not think at all. At that moment, Emperor Yi swooped down with the Star Saber and the Sun-Moon Divine Sword in his hands. The 2 weapons clashed, and they went straight for LV Junyi's head. Once struck, even his godhead would be shattered by the 2 primary god weapons. Boom! Dong Qin turned into a sharp sword, piercing through space and shooting up from the ground. At the same time, she went for LV Junyi's heart. Chapter 832. LV Junyi looked at Dong Qin and Emperor Ye's figures in horror. They arrived in an instant, and there was no way for him to dodge. He, who was as strong as a Lord God, couldn't break the forbidden technique of the Purple Emperor's lineage, spacetime imprisonment. Spacetime imprisonment was a forbidden technique among the alternate pupil techniques. Once it was used, the caster's life force would be greatly depleted. The descendants of the Purple Emperor rarely used such a technique. Once they did, they could even kill a Lord God, not to mention that they were working together with Emperor Yi and the celestial battle body. Whoosh! The divine light shone for thousands of miles, and the aftermath shattered the mountain range. If it weren't for Yi Qinghan resisting the aftermath, the humble village would definitely be razed to the ground. Emperor Yi and Dong Qin were as fast as lightning, and they were not affected in the slightest by the imprisonment of time and space. Their swords and sabers danced, and they slashed down from the 9 heavens. A dark and silent crack appeared in the sky above, and it directly split open LV Junyi's head. Another beam of sword light pierced through his chest. Boom! The powerful Lord God's Tao physique was instantly torn apart, and blood stained the sky. Die! Emperor Yi and Dong Qin attacked at the same time. Their soul attacks and the 2 great natal divine weapons surrounded LV Junyi's soul at the same time. No matter how strong his soul was, it was powerless against the sun and moon divine sword and the starry manic blade, as well as the soul attacks of 2 great cultivators. LV Junyi let out a shrill scream. His divine spark was shattered, and the crack on his Lord God's divine spark was shocking. His soul was exposed, and he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Boom! LV Junyi's head exploded, and only the broken divine spark was left. However, he still couldn't break free from Zixian's imprisonment. He could only watch as Emperor Yi and Dong Qin attacked. In the blink of an eye, the space collapsed, and the Lord God's divine spark was completely shattered. His soul was directly exposed. Whoosh! LV Junyi roared. His soul was ferocious, and he launched his most powerful soul attack. It covered more than 10 miles and concentrated around the humble village. The 3 experts were hit hard, and even Emperor Yi couldn't take it. No matter how weak the Lord God was, he was still a Lord God. He coughed up blood and flew backward. Zixian was weak because he used the forbidden technique. He was directly hit by LV Junyi's soul attack. LV Junyi's soul attack made him dizzy, and he fell to the ground directly. But Lord God was still a Lord God's divine weapon. She was surrounded. She didn't retreat when LV Junyi launched his soul attack. She attacked was Lord God's too. She didn't retreat, she didn't retreat. She attacked, she was attack was to attack. He was to be was to fight was fought was to form. Yi Qinghan frowned. Emperor Yi and the other 2's attacks, except for Emperor Yi, couldn't deal a fatal blow to LV Junyi. Dong Qin should have a soul defense Lord God artifact, which was why she didn't have to worry about LV Junyi's soul attack. But it was a little difficult for her to fight against a Lord God. However, the humble village needed to be taken care of. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan drew his berserk, ready to help Emperor Yi at any time, even if he had to sacrifice the humble village. But LV Junyi was only left with his soul. It was unrealistic for him to completely crush Dong Qin. Now, he could only wait for Emperor Yi to react. Zixian's face was pale. 2 streams of blood flowed from his eyes. His mind was in a mess. He lay not far away, not even having the strength to dodge. Emperor Yi reacted quickly. After all, his soul was as strong as a Lord God's, and he had a supreme godhead. How could he be hurt by a Lord God like LV Junyi? Emperor Yi was multitasking. He controlled the divine sword and berserk sword to attack LV Junyi from the air. At the same time, he activated Emperor Zither. The Zither's murderous music covered the 9 heavens. Yi Qinghan watched as Emperor Yi quickly went to help Dong Qin. Knowing that she was fine, he grabbed Zixian from the air to prevent her from being killed by the aftershocks. Yi Qinghan guarded the humble village tightly. However, the villagers were still in a panic. This was because Yi Qinghan was barely able to defend himself at the moment. He was constantly being pushed back. The training field outside the humble village had been destroyed and collapsed. The outer defensive fortifications had all been destroyed. No matter how weak LV Junyi was, he was still a lord. The aftershocks from his attack with Emperor Yi, Dongqin, and the other pupil lineage were enough to destroy most half-step lords. It was already a feat for Yi Qinghan to be able to forcefully defend himself. Everyone, retreat to the back of the village. Don't stand at the front, Yi Qinghan reminded the village chief, Yang Zhan, in a deep voice. Yang Zhan hurriedly organized the villagers to move backward. Now, he was pinning all of his hopes on Yi Qinghan. The nearby iron village had been razed to the ground by the aftershocks. The entire village had been wiped out. There was no other way. There were no powerhouses in the village who could block the aftershocks at all. Apart from the iron village, 4 other villages were affected. Blood flowed like rivers, and many people died without intact corpses. At the moment, LV Junyi was on the verge of a breakdown. The sole attack that he was so proud of had lost its effectiveness. In the eyes of lords, even a combat body might not be a match for them. However, his divine body had been shattered by 3 juniors. Even now, his Tao body, which had evolved from his soul, was still no match for the 2 little girls. Who are you? Tell me your names. Don't hurt your own people. LV Junyi kept retreating, not daring to fight head-on. Emperor Yi had already evolved into a giant dragon. He kept swooping down with his mouth wide open, fangs leaping out of the void. He was like a demon from the primal chaos era who wanted to devour everything. He had no intention of negotiating with LV Junyi at all. LV Junyi was scared silly. Emperor Ye's aura was too powerful. It was as if the primal chaos over God had descended. Now, Emperor Yi was prepared. His soul was hidden within the over-God persona, so his soul attack was like a joke. It had no effect on him at all. Instead, he was counterattacked by the over-God persona, causing his soul to grow weaker and weaker. Whoosh, LV Junyi fled. Emperor Yi and Dongqin took the initiative to pursue and kill him. Otherwise, the Water Sword sect would come for revenge sooner or later. The battlefield of the 3 shifted, and the humble village was no longer affected. Yi Qinghan rose into the sky, and with a slash of his blade, he appeared 100 miles away. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stared straight ahead. Emperor Yi and Dongqin were chasing after LV Junyi, and the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Yi Qinghan unleashed Wind Mark and kept leaping through the air. He swooped down from another route and intercepted LV Junyi from the front. His long blade slashed through the air, and his tall figure stood proudly in front of him. He looked at LV Junyi who was panicking, and his right hand clenched frenzy. LV Junyi discovered Yi Qinghan and roared, "Scram!" Whoosh! A streak of light tore through space and charged towards Yi Qinghan. Boom! Yi Qinghan's divine power erupted, and his 5 elemental Tao body was activated. His attack was peerless, and he killed LV Junyi with a single slash. The collision between the 2 caused the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. Mountains were flattened, and countless creatures were killed. The 2 flew backward. Yi Qinghan was fine, and he quickly stabilized his body. However, LV Junyi was unlucky. He was blocked by Emperor Yi and Dongqin. The 2 powerful cultivators attacked violently, and LV Junyi was directly suppressed to the ground. Stupid donkey! I was about to go find you, but you came to me on your own accord. Yi Qinghan stepped toward LV Junyi. Seeing that LV Junyi was still forcefully maintaining his Tao body, he couldn't help but laugh disdainfully. He reached out and grabbed LV Junyi's soul. Chapter 833. LV Junyi was held in Yi Qinghan's hand. He couldn't even recover his soul state. His life and death were in Yi Qinghan's hands. His eyes were filled with terror. Fellow Taoist, it's a misunderstanding. LV Junyi begged in horror. Misunderstanding? Didn't you come to find me? I was the one who destroyed the drifting cloud camp. Yi Qinghan stared at LV Junyi and said indifferently. The drifting cloud camp, a bandit nest. Everyone has the right to punish them. You killed them to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. How could this old man blame you? LV Junyi immediately changed his expression. He was afraid of angering Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan sneered and asked disdainfully, since everyone has the right to punish them, why did you raise so many bandits and plant them in Hanqing County? Misunderstanding. You really misunderstood. They aren't my water sword sect's people. They're from Qianxi City's heavenly divine sect. How could a small sect like us plant so many bandits in every county in Qianxi City? LV Junyi hurriedly explained. Is that so? Heavenly divine sect. But it's still related to your water sword sect. You didn't die unjustly. Yi Qinghan was incomparably cold. He directly devoured LV Junyi's soul. Boom! Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness churned. His soul rapidly rose. This kind of soul-devouring secret technique was already a forbidden technique. The great demonic god's lineage used to love this kind of secret technique. However, the great demonic god felt that it went against the laws of nature and completely suppressed it. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to comprehend it himself. But fortunately, Yi Qinghan didn't devour everyone's soul. Some people didn't need to exist anymore. Only then would he devour them, and they had to be experts. For an existence like LV Junyi, devouring his soul would not only strengthen his soul, but also devour all of his memories. LV Junyi's memories continuously appeared in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. A large amount of information regarding Qianxi City was presented to Yi Qinghan. Only then did Yi Qinghan have a general understanding of Qianxi City and even the entire plain. However, there was one thing that made Yi Qinghan frown. He felt that it was somewhat impossible. The heavenly divine sect was actually a faction of the shaman's lineage. More importantly, the divine sect's relationship with the drifting cloud camp. Or rather, it was related to all the bandits in Qianxi City. LV Junyi was just a dog's dog. LV Junyi was just a dog. LV Junyi was just a dog's dog with the sects. LV Junyi was actually dog s was. After so many years of inheritance, the shaman's lineage had become so filthy. There should be many organizations like the Heavenly Divine Sect in the Sorcerer Tribe's camp. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Yi Qinghan sighed softly. The Heavenly Divine Sect was not to be trifled with. After all, it was a super large sect that had been passed down since the Chaos Era. Its inheritance had never been severed. Its secret methods were powerful, far beyond what an ordinary sect could compare with. The elites in the sect were like fish in a river. There were many powerhouses, and even lords dominated an area. Qianxi City spanned hundreds of millions of kilometers. There was no telling where it ended or started. Many people would find it difficult to walk out of Qianxi City's sphere of influence in their entire lives. There were countless small counties like Hanqing County. However, not every small county had a lord like LV Junyi. No matter how low LV Junyi's cultivation base was, he was still a lord. Even if several hundred half-step lords worked together, they might not be able to kill him. However, there were many half-step lords in each city and county. Most of the princesses were kings of the same rank. These people all obeyed the orders of the Heavenly Divine Sect. One could imagine how terrifying the Heavenly Divine Sect's influence was. This upper realm was called the Dragonwalk Continent. There were at least 6,000, if not 8,000, sects like the Heavenly Divine Sect. There were also some transcendental organizations that occupied even larger territories. That was how big the Dragonwalk Continent was. It was completely incomparable to a middle realm. Yi Qinghan had completely devoured the memories. He was not interested in those secret skills. The Lord-level secret skills that someone like LV Junyi could come into contact with were inferior goods. Yi Qinghan was not interested in them at all. Subsequently, Yi Qinghan told him about Qianxi City and the Heavenly Divine Sect. He would have to act within his means as to whether or not he should care about the lives and deaths of all living things in Qianxi City. He would have to listen to Emperor Yi and Dong Qin's opinions. I don't care about that. I won't get involved in any of the matters between the two camps unless they provoke me. Otherwise, so what if they destroy the world? Dong Qin said indifferently. I'm afraid that if we destroy the Drift Cloud Fortress and the Water Sword Sect, even if we go against the Heavenly Divine Sect, they'll come looking for us even if we don't go looking for them, Yi Qinghan said helplessly. Let's talk about it after they come. I don't cause trouble, but that doesn't mean I'm afraid of it. Not to mention the Heavenly Divine Sect, even if the Sorcerer Tribe provokes me, I'll still dare to kill them, Dong Qin said coldly. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. He did not know where Dong Qin's confidence came from. That child Wu Yan alone was not easy to deal with. Fortunately, Wu Yan's attitude towards him was still good. At least they did not go against each other. However, what he did not know was how Wu Yan viewed the Heavenly Divine Sect's actions. Did he not know, or did he know but pretended not to see? The three returned to the humble village and decided to leave. Staying here would only harm them. The Heavenly Divine Sect would find them sooner or later. After the annual celebration, Yi Qinghan and Zixian used about half a month to recover more than half of their exhausted source energy. They set off from the humble village and headed straight for the Water Sword Sect. They passed by some villages and uprooted all of them. The news spread quickly. The people of the Water Sword Sect were in a state of panic, not knowing where to go. However, Yi Qinghan would not be soft-hearted. He took the three beauties and spent 5 days appearing outside the Water Sword Sect. He controlled the entire sect with his spiritual sense. Not even the slightest movement could escape his eyes. Kill them all. There's no need for this kind of sect to exist. They're used to living like princes. Even if we don't kill them, they'll gather again after we leave. Yi Qinghan's words decided the fate of the entire Water Sword Sect. The three beauties did not retort. They entered the sect and began the massacre. Apart from the children and slaves, they killed everyone. The treasury of the Water Sword Sect contained a large number of divine medicines of decent quality. Some of them even caused the divine bird and the celestial battle body to fight over them. If it weren't for Yi Qinghan acting as a mediator, this group would have fallen apart long ago. You have the celestial battle body. How dare you fight over treasures with this divine bird? Are you even human? The divine bird saw the celestial battle body snatch away a perfect divine source of chaos. It was unwilling to give up and roared furiously. Get out of here. Do you still have any shame? You stole my celestial treasure. This is something that can help one break through to the over-God realm without any bottlenecks. If it weren't for the fact that a trashy force like the Water Sword Sect had collected it, I wouldn't have let you off so easily. If you're interested in the divine source of chaos, how about I trade it with my divine medicine of chaos? Dong Qin's enchanting face turned ferocious. She flew into a rage out of humiliation and hated the divine bird to the core. The divine bird was disdainful. It clung tightly to the cosmos ring on its claw. Celestial treasures could only be found by chance. It still did not understand the use of divine medicines, but it would definitely understand in the future. In any case, they were much more valuable than divine medicine of chaos. Chapter 834. The divine bird and Dong Qin quarreled incessantly, but Yi Qinghan could not suppress the divine bird in his body. After all, the tiny Water Sword Sect was hiding many treasures. LV Junyi was extremely greedy. He hid all the true treasures he had collected and did not hand them over to the Celestial Sect. He was ambitious and wanted to reverse the situation. Even if he could not destroy the celestial sect, he wanted to be on equal footing with them at the very least. Unfortunately, he was unlucky enough to run into Yi Qinghan and the others. Yi Qinghan and the others took advantage of the situation. For the sake of fairness, although Zixian and Emperor Yi did not have the advantage of searching for treasures, they still chose to split the treasures equally. After all, everyone had a share of the credit for killing LV Junyi. Zixian, in particular, had contributed the most, so it was only right that he received a portion of the reward. After splitting all the resources of the Water Sword sect, Yi Qinghan and the others did not care about the usual divine crystals. They distributed them to the villagers around them. Even the humble village received a lot of them. After the Water Sword sect was eradicated, the bandits in Hanqing County scattered like a fallen tree. They had also become a target of scorn. The people joined forces and uprooted many of the mountain strongholds. Hanqing County was just a remote and desolate place. Information was blocked there, and the celestial sect had not heard of it yet. Yi Qinghan and the others began flying toward the county city of Hanqing County. They cultivated and hurried along the way, helping the villagers eliminate the bandits if they could. Occasionally, they would find some decent miracle medicine. The miracle medicine in the upper realm was much more potent than those in the middle realm. Moreover, there were more of them and they were older. After all, the space here was too stable. Ordinary half-step lords could fly extremely slowly. It would take a lot of time to travel and search for treasures in the vast upper realm. Sometimes, they had no choice but to rely on the villagers to search for treasures. However, there were too few miracle medicines that the villagers could recognize. They only used the ones that were easy to identify. Most of the miracle medicines that grew on the cliffs had been there for countless years and were untouched to this day. With the four of them and the divine bird, no treasure could escape their eyes. They collected all the treasures along the way, so they did not feel bored. Just like that, a year and a half passed. Yi Qinghan and the others arrived at the capital of Hanqing County half a year before the drifting cloud boat departed. The four of them looked at the city of Hanqing County. They couldn't help but feel a little confused. Why was the city of the upper plain so desolate? There were only 4 walls in the house. These were the only words that could be used to describe Hanqing County City. The city walls were completely made of stone, and the houses in the city were very short and disorderly. They were only slightly better looking than the houses in the poor family's village. There was no plan at all, and the city was not big. There was still half a year before they set off from the Flowing Cloud camp, but there was not even a shadow in the city. There was only a wisp of smoke rising in spirals, telling the four that this county city was not a ghost town. "Brother Yi, are you sure you didn't lead the wrong way? How could this be the capital of Hanqing County?" Zixian looked at the so-called county city. It was a place where even birds wouldn't shit. It could even be considered an oasis in the Gobi Desert. He couldn't help but feel speechless. Yi Qinghan smiled. According to LV Junyi's memories, this was indeed the county city. The reason why there were so few people was because the villagers had to travel very far to enter the county city. On average, it would take 2 to 5 years for them to gather and trade. So, on normal days, this was a desolate place. Only a few inns were open for business. Yi Qinghan explained, "This is the capital of Hanqing County. It's getting dark, so let's go in and find a place to stay. Rumor has it that ghost whirlwinds and sandstorms often occur here at night. They can even tear the bodies of gods apart. The tearing power is not inferior to spatial storms. These buildings look old, but they have all been specially treated. The foundations are very deep, so even spatial storms might not be able to tear them apart." Only then did Purple Deity and Emperor Yi pay attention to these stones. They discovered that although they appeared to be scattered, they were actually connected to each other. They were connected to the ground, and it was clear that they were piled up by a mountain. Dong Qin looked at the buildings in the city and found that every house was built with celestial dipper metal as the foundation. They looked old and shabby, but they were actually fortresses protected by formations. Such a city had been passed down for countless years. It was understandable that it could become the city of Hanqing County. The four of them entered the city. There wasn't a single guard in the city. There was only a hunchbacked old night watchman. He looked as old as if he had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. His body was bent at a 90-degree angle. The sky gradually darkened. Dark clouds covered the stars. There was an inn that was still open for business. Although no one came in and out, the door was still open. From afar, there was a wooden sign hanging in front of the door. It swayed in the wind. Yi Qinghan could clearly see 4 words written on it. Dragon Gate Inn. Yi Qinghan quickly arrived outside the Dragon Gate Inn with the 3 beauties. He found that there were 2 lines of small words on the back of the wooden sign. The Dragon Gate faces south. Don't enter if you don't have money. Yi Qinghan and the others smiled. How much could it cost to stay in an inn for a few days? Moreover, Yi Qinghan and Dong Qin were rare tycoons in the world. Especially Dong Qin. There was no treasure in the world that she couldn't obtain. The treasures she had could probably be exchanged for a large city in the upper plain. Big pockmarked, do you want to fucking lose your job? It's already dark. Why aren't you closing the door? Are you waiting for ghosts to come? A sharp voice rang out from within the tavern. Although it was a woman's voice, it was very pleasing to the ears. However, for such a voice to suddenly erupt in this damned place, it caused goosebumps to appear all over Yi Qinghan's body. Boss Long, there's still 5 minutes left. I closed the door according to your rules. You can't blame me. An aggrieved voice broke the silence of the Dragon Gate Inn. You dare talk back? I'm going to pull out your front teeth. Go and lock the door. You're not allowed to eat tomorrow. The woman's voice roared again, breaking the silence of Hanqing County. Soon, a middle-aged man with a face full of pockmarks helplessly carried 2 metal plates and was about to seal the door. Yi Qinghan was 1 step ahead of him and stopped him. 3 rooms, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Big Pockmark looked at Yi Qinghan in surprise. Then, he turned his gaze to Zixian, Dong Qin, and Emperor Yi. His eyes flashed and he quickly took a step back. He shouted to the 2nd floor, Boss Long, we have rooms. For guests, should we entertain them? Nonsense. If we don't entertain guests, are we going to eat the northwest wind? An enchanting figure on the 2nd floor swayed her hips as she walked towards the hall. Yi Qinghan looked up at Boss Long. She was extremely enchanting. She was simply a femme fatale. Her figure could make men impulsive. Even a superior god couldn't resist her teasing. Yi Qinghan wasn't surprised. His pupils shrank and his eyebrows flashed. He knew that this person wasn't simple. She was very complicated. This inn isn't simple. There's killing intent. The 4 of them had the same thought at the same time. They were all on guard. Oh, what a handsome young man. TSK, you're so lucky to have 3 great beauties following you. Boss Long's voice changed. It was gentle and charming to the extreme. It could make one's bones itch. Chapter 835. It seemed like a simple, run-down inn, but Yi Qinghan and the rest felt a chill run down their spines, especially when such a seductive woman was the owner. The pockmarked man was also a half-step lord, while the woman was even more unfathomable. Even Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi could not see through her true cultivation base. Boss Long could not help but be surprised when she saw the 3 beauties and Yi Qinghan. She had not expected to encounter legendary constitutions in a place like this. Moreover, there were 3 of them. Yi Qinghan's 5 elemental Dao constitution was considered the weakest, yet she did not think much of him. Boss Long, will be staying in your inn. There are 3 guest rooms, and please prepare some dinner for us. Yi Qinghan ignored Boss Long's seductive charms. He dared not let his guard down. The prettier and more seductive a woman was, the more difficult it would be to provoke her, especially in a remote place like this. You're so handsome, but you're a little late to the guest rooms. They've already been booked. There's only 1 room left. Do you want it? Boss Long walked gracefully. Her jade-like arms were bare, and her creamy skin was translucent and sparkling. One could not help but want to touch it. Yi Qinghan frowned. The inn was quite spacious, and there were dozens of guest rooms. How could they have all been booked in advance? Please give us 2 more rooms, Boss Long. We'll pay double, Yi Qinghan said firmly as he stared at Boss Long. I'm very sorry, but the employer has already booked 99% of the rooms, and the fees have already been paid. Our Longmen Inn is honest and trustworthy. We won't refund the deposit we've received. Moreover, we're the only inn in Hanqing County that's still open. There's only 1 room left. If you want it, it'll be 1,000 high-grade divine crystals a day. Boss Long saw that Yi Qinghan had been very wary of her, so she dispelled her charm and walked up to the 4 of them. The surprise in her eyes grew. 1,000 high-grade divine crystals a day for a single room. Was Boss Long asking for sky-high prices? The 3 beauties frowned. There was only 1 guest room left. How were they going to stay? Emperor Yi and Yi Qinghan could live together, but Zixian and Dongqin were virgins. They had never let a man into their rooms, let alone sharing a room with a man. You really can't bend the rules. I'll pay you 2,000 RMB a day for half a year. Can't you at least give us 2 rooms? Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Boss Long smiled sweetly as her slender fingers brushed past Yi Qinghan's chest. She smiled slyly. It seems that young master is truly from a wealthy family. You don't even think that 1,000 high-grade divine crystals is too expensive for a single day. You even took the initiative to raise the price. However, although I like divine crystals, I care more about my reputation. They will be here in 3 days, so I really can't let you have this house. Moreover, this year is the Hanqing County's decennial gathering. The people of Qianxi City will all be here to barter. Right now, houses are a rare commodity. You came at the right time. If you came tomorrow, I'm afraid you wouldn't even have a single room left. Boss Long refused to give up a single room. Let's just stay like this. You can at least give us 2 extra beds in that room, right? Zixian was swift and decisive. She didn't care about the propriety between men and women. Moreover, she had been with Yi Qinghan for so long. She believed that he wouldn't intentionally or unintentionally peek at her. Dongqin had no choice but to agree to stay in the same room for the time being. Yi Qinghan shrugged. Others might find it enjoyable to stay in the same room with 3 demonesses, but he couldn't accept it. First of all, he couldn't have sex with Emperor Yi. Facing 3 demonesses, he had to endure for half a year. No man would be able to take it. However, he had no choice but to endure. Then give us 1 room. Give us the most spacious one. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Big pockmarked, go and empty the sky room 1. Give them 2 extra beds. Boss Long looked at Yi Qinghan meaningfully. She suddenly felt that the one with the worst constitution was very likely the backbone of the 4. She couldn't help but be curious. Just what kind of charm did Yi Qinghan have to make the celestial treasure battle body and otherworldly pupils submit to him? As for Emperor Ye's constitution, she really couldn't see it. At least, she couldn't see it when it came to the Chaos Dragon inheritance. Second brother Ma, third brother Teng, prepare the best dinner for this old lady. I want to invite the 4 of you to a banquet. Boss Long stomped her foot. The floor echoed. It was clearly a basement, or perhaps a kitchen. Okay. 2 voices came from below. They were deep and powerful. One could tell that they weren't ordinary people. "Thank you, fellow Taoist Long. We'll go in and rest for a while. We'll come out after a while." Yi Qing Han looked around the hall. There were about 20 or so tables. They were neatly arranged and very clean. The second, third, and fourth floors were guest rooms. The ceiling formed a circle. There were indeed many rooms, but only Yi Qing Han and the other three were staying here. It seemed empty and a little creepy. Yi Qing Han became more and more surprised. Just what was the background of this small Dragon Gate Inn? Other inns were closed, but this inn was open as usual. The key was that the waiters and chefs here had unfathomable cultivation. They shouldn't be here. Zixian and the others entered the guest rooms first. Yi Qing Han followed closely behind and entered the Sky Room 1. After tidying up the room, there were 2 extra beds. Yi Qing Han and Emperor Yi shared one, and Zixian and Dongqin shared one each. With 2 extra beds, the space was very cramped. Yi Qing Han set up a soundproof barrier and sat on the bed. "There's something wrong with this inn," Dongqin and Yi Qing Han said at the same time. Emperor Yi and Zixian nodded. They had also discovered the problem. As soon as they entered the inn, they sensed the smell of blood and some strange aura lingering in the inn. If it weren't for the fact that the 4 experts were very sensitive to the smell of blood, they wouldn't have sensed it at all. This should be a shady inn. "Everyone, be careful. Don't eat or touch the food. This Boss Long is definitely not a good person. I doubled the price, but she didn't even bat an eye. It's clear that she didn't open this inn for money," Yi Qing Han said with certainty. "Yes, it's good to stay together. Let's not split up in the future. At the very least, it's not realistic for a single overgod to kill us," Emperor Yi agreed. The 4 of them nodded. All 4 of them were monstrous geniuses. They were invincible in the same realm. If they worked together, it would be very easy for them to deal with an overgod like LV Junyi. If they encountered a true overgod, even if they couldn't kill them, they could at least protect themselves. "I keep having the feeling that this Boss Long is an overgod. What do you think?" Dongqin asked softly. A chief god had come to such a remote and desolate place to open an inn for thousands of years. Was she bored out of her mind? Yi Qing Han frowned. According to LV Junyi's memories, he knew that this Dragon Gate Inn had been around for thousands of years. Many people had tried to take advantage of the inn, but they all died. Even the overgods were no exception. It was rumored that this Boss Long had 2 followers. They were both independent cultivators with unfathomable cultivation bases. The weakest was a low-level overgod. They were much more terrifying than LV Junyi. Chapter 836. Yi Qing Han and the others didn't question Dongqin's assumption that Boss Long was a king god. Dongqin had the celestial battle body and was very sensitive to the fluctuations of god power. No matter how good a king god was at hiding, he couldn't escape her senses. "We don't know where this person came from. As long as she doesn't provoke us, we won't provoke her either. After half a year, we'll move to another inn and see if we can find an extra room." Yi Qing Han looked around the room. Other than the 3 beds, there was no empty space. It was torturous for the 3 beauties to share a room with him. The 4 of them discussed for a while and then walked into the room. They heard the ghostly wind howling outside. Outside the window, they saw vortexes that were even more terrifying than spatial storms. They covered the sky and covered the sun. Some stones were even uprooted. After so many years of being exposed to the elements, the remaining stones were even harder than steel. At this moment, they were ground to dust. "Don't go out at night. This place is full of sand snakes. The whirlwinds are even more destructive than spatial storms. This is an ancient city left behind from ancient times. Unfortunately, due to environmental factors, this place is already a dangerous place. It only blossoms every spring and becomes a sea of flowers. When summer comes, it will be destroyed. Boss Long sat in front of a table with his legs crossed. His creamy skin was exposed, and he looked very seductive. Does the Gobi Desert bloom? Emperor Yi asked curiously with two divine weapons on his back. Yes. This place used to be called Sea of Flowers City. Unfortunately, no one remembers it anymore. Every spring, you will see the most beautiful scenery in the world. Boss Long sighed sadly. Yi Qinghan seemed to understand something. This Boss Long must have a connection with Sea of Flowers City. How should I address the four of you? Boss Long looked straight at Yi Qinghan and asked calmly. I am Yi Qinghan. Emperor Yi. Zixin. Dong Qin. The four of them introduced themselves instantly and didn't hide anything. I am Long Zai. Others call me Boss Long. You can call me Zai or Boss Long, Long Zai said calmly. The four of you aren't from the Dragonline realm, are you? Long Zai asked Yi Qinghan and the others. We are indeed from the Middle Plain, and we came here by chance. We know nothing about the Dragonline Plain. I wonder if Boss Long could give us some pointers. How do we return to Sisui Plain? Yi Qinghan sat down cross-legged in front of Long Zai and asked softly. The Sisui Plain? Long Zai frowned slightly, as if trying to recall where the Sisui Plain was. After a long while, Long Zai replied, We'll depart from here to Qianxi City, then take the Space Gate to the Central Continent. From there, we'll take a detour to the Sky Dragon Continent. From there, we can reach the Middle Plain. As for whether it's the Sisui Plain or not, I don't know. Yi Qinghan secretly memorized the route and cupped his fists in thanks. However, although he knew the route, he estimated that he would have wasted more than 100 years on the road. With the cultivation of the four of you, I advise you not to run around. On the surface, there aren't many lords, but there were more than 3,000 chaos giant gods back then. Now that so many years have passed, there are quite a few lords. Once the four of you are in high demand, I'm afraid you'll be devoured before you even reach the Central Continent, Long Zai said with a smile. The corner of Dong Qin's mouth twitched. If she had not been forced into a corner, she would not have followed Yi Qinghan to the upper plain. Now, the middle plain was the most suitable place for her to develop. Coming to the upper plain after she became a lord would be the best choice. Zixin was fine. With her status, some people would have to think twice before attacking her. The Z family was not to be trifled with. The Z family also had a lord. Once the forbidden technique was used, the top experts of both camps would have to give way. Even the strongest expert of the present day, the second sorcerer god, would have to give way. After all, he was old. Without the wood origin crystal, his vitality could not be replenished. Moreover, 1 or 2 wood origin crystals were not enough for him. He would need at least 5 wood origin crystals to restore him to peak condition. However, the wood origin crystal was a rare treasure. Dong Qin had only found 1 so far. It was almost unrealistic to want 5. The 4 of them were silent. Right now, they were hiding from a disaster. It was good enough that they could escape. If the people of both camps knew that Yi Qinghan had run to the upper plain, the 4 of them would not even have a place to run. The lords would swarm over, and the 4 of them would definitely die without a burial place. Miss Dong Qin, may I ask if you have the celestial battle body? Long Zai had not seen Dong Qin fight. He did not even show any fluctuations of divine power. Yet, he could guess her identity. It was clear how terrifying her cultivation was. Dong Qin was also very surprised, but she still nodded and admitted her identity. Miss Zixin, you should be the descendant of Senior Zi Huang of the other pupil tribe, right? Long Zai looked at Zixin and asked calmly. Zixin's identity was very easy to confirm. In addition, she did not hide her eyes. As long as one had some knowledge, it was not difficult to guess her identity. Zixian also nodded and admitted. Long Zai looked at Emperor Yi, and a hint of suspicion appeared in her charming eyes. Someone who could mix with these two monsters was definitely not an ordinary person. Moreover, she felt that the aura in Emperor Ye's body was very terrifying. It was like a spatial storm. Once it erupted, it would definitely destroy heaven and earth. However, she could not see through Emperor Ye's true constitution. This Taoist Ye's identity is very easy to guess. His 5 elements Tao body is very obvious. He cultivates the Tao of order, karma, and reincarnation. I guess he is preparing to forge the 9 revolution chaos Tao body. However, I really can't guess Taoist Emperor Ye's identity. Long Zai frowned and thought to herself, even with my knowledge, I can't see through this little girl's identity. How strange. Emperor Yi smiled and did not say anything. Now that there was only one supreme godhead, once it was exposed, many people would desperately fight for it even though they knew it was dangerous. Even if they did not fight for it, they would still try to kill it. Killing geniuses was something that some old bastards loved to do. They could not become supreme gods, but they were the strongest under supreme gods. Since they could not become supreme gods, then they would not let any supreme gods appear. They would still be high and mighty, and no one could keep them in check. Boss Long, since you asked so many questions, may I ask as well? Yi Qinghan asked in return. At this time, 2 burly men walked out from the ground. They were tall and strong, and their muscles were bronze in color. They were as hard as divine weapons. Ordinary high-tier divine weapons would definitely not be able to tear through their physical defenses. They carried a plate with a roasted tiger on it. Long Zai stretched out his hand and beckoned for the roasted meat, then calmly introduced, "This is a mystic tiger. It tastes delicious and contains a large amount of blood energy. It is the best food for replenishing one's strength. Please have a taste. If you have any questions, you can ask me after you finish eating. I will definitely tell you everything I know." Yi Qinghan and the others exchanged glances. This Long Zai seemed to be quite talkative, and had even taken the initiative to remind them not to wander around. However, they really did not dare to eat the food here. Dong Qin was very sensitive to poisons, and she took the initiative to tear off a piece of meat. The aroma wafted out, and she sniffed it lightly. She did not detect anything strange, so she put it in her mouth and chewed. Only then did Yi Qinghan and the others feel at ease and eat. The 4 of them quickly finished all the food on the table. Long Zai and the 2 burly men chuckled, and a strange look flashed through their eyes. However, Yi Qinghan noticed it. Chapter 837. Long Zai was too strange, so Yi Qinghan had no choice but to be careful. They ate a bit of mystic tiger meat, but it did contain a lot of blood essence energy, so the 4 of them were full of energy and fatigue. The ghostly wind outside was even more sinister, like hell on earth. How did an ancient city become like this? Now that no one cared about it, there must be something behind it. Boss Long, you're an over-god, right? The inn was silent for a long time, so Yi Qinghan went straight to the point. Long Zai knew he couldn't hide it from the 4 of them. After all, they were all monsters among monsters, so he waved his hand to signal Big Pockmark, 2nd Bro Ma, and 3rd Bro Ting to leave. The 3 of them didn't hesitate and immediately returned downstairs, not daring to peek at the discussion above. That's right. I'm an over-god. You must be very curious as to why a mighty over-god like me would come to such a remote place and open an inn for thousands or even tens of thousands of years, right? Long Zai said calmly. Yi Qinghan and the others nodded. Anyone would be cautious and curious about something like this. I'm a descendant of Flower Sea City, and I'm investigating the cause of its destruction. Flower Sea City has a long history, and it has survived countless eras without falling. It has countless experts, and before it was destroyed, there was an over-god. However, it was destroyed in a single night, and its vitality was extinguished. Flower Sea was bathed in blood, and half the sky was dyed red. As a result, the sea of flowers withered. What was once a paradise on earth has now become a desolate place. Yi Qinghan didn't interrupt Long Zai. She paused for a moment before continuing. Only a few villages managed to escape the calamity. At night, the wind blows the sand away, and the cries of ghosts and wolves can be heard from time to time. It's even more terrifying than hell. Every night, the ghostly wind is like a spatial storm. Only a few special buildings in the city survived. Even the over-gods were swept away by the storm. Everyone says that there must have been some injustice done to Flower Sea City, but none of the over-gods back then stepped forward to investigate this matter. I came here to find out who was so cruel as to destroy an entire city in a single night. Even the over-gods were nailed to death in the over-gods' residence, their faces filled with fear and unwillingness. At this point, the killing intent in Long Zai's eyes intensified. His slender fingers pierced through the metal table. You must be the orphan of Huahai City, right? Yi Qinghan asked tentatively when he saw Long Zai's anger. Long Zai's eyes flashed coldly as he stared at Yi Qinghan. Emperor Yi took a step forward, wanting to pull out the berserk blade from his back, and stared at Long Zai. Zixian and Dongqing were also very vigilant and stared at him. Yi Qinghan didn't move. He just looked at Long Zai calmly and whispered, "We're only from a small plane and have no connection with the Dragonline plane. Boss Long, please don't be hostile. I just want to find out how Flower Sea City was destroyed." Long Zai didn't admit his identity, nor did he need to. He couldn't deny it either. Back then, Flower Sea City was extremely powerful. Some said that it was the wrath of the heavens, but I don't believe it was. Moreover, the over-gods were very lenient towards the people and focused on economic development. They never bullied the people and won the hearts of the people. If it was the wrath of the heavens, then the heavens are too blind. Boss Long, you've been investigating for so long. What did you find? Yi Qinghan suddenly thought of his own Quanglong Empire. Flower Sea City's management was the same as Quanglong Manor's, so it probably offended someone. However, the over-god of Flower Sea City wasn't as lucky as him. He had the help of the 9 Remoteness Lord, while the over-god was alone. There aren't many clues. Back then, there were more than one over-god involved. Otherwise, over-god Flowing Light would have resisted, Long Zai said in a low voice. Flowing Light? The time over-god who was said to be able to turn back time. Zixian and Dongqing were both people with inheritances, so they had some understanding of the upper planes. At this moment, they couldn't help but ask at the same time. Yes, Long Zai replied solemnly. I seem to remember Master saying that, but I was still young back then. She said that Flowing Light's mistake was that he was too lenient. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been impossible for the Dragonline plane to be unified. Right, I also remember Master saying that Flowing Light was met by 4 over-gods. It seemed like they were discussing something, but the discussion fell through. After he returned, he met with a mishap. I suspect that the destruction of Flower Sea City has something to do with those 4 over-gods. Dongqing thought for a moment, recalling every word that the celestial treasure battle body had said to her back then. Long Zai's eyes flashed, and he stood up. He stared at Dongqing and asked in a low voice, "Who met Flowing Light back then?" Dongqing frowned and tried hard to recall, but back then, it was just her master's Sai. She didn't listen carefully, so she didn't think that it was related to the destruction of Flower Sea City. Back then, Flowing Light had a very good reputation in the Dragonline plane. His character and appearance were first-rate, and he was deeply loved by some female cultivators. There was no lack of female cultivator over-gods who followed him. The Light over-god and the celestial treasure battle body were also quite fond of him, but he rejected them all. However, it didn't stop some people from pursuing him. Even after he died, some people still felt sad for him. Let me think. Master seemed to be talking to herself back then. Her voice wasn't loud, and I was too young back then. I don't remember at all, nor did I care. Dongqin smiled bitterly. Please help me. Think again. Even a word or two would be good. Long Zai's jade-like arms trembled slightly. She was clearly excited. The meeting between the over-gods back then was very secretive. Even the Z family didn't have records of it. The fact that the celestial treasure battle body of the previous generation knew meant that her relationship with Flowing Light wasn't ordinary. The inn fell into silence. Apart from the whistling of the ghostly wind and the hair-raising cry of a baby, there was no other sound. There's someone called Lu. Lu. Lu something. Dongqin's enchanting face was filled with anxiety, but she didn't expect it to be so different. Flowing Light Ghost Daoist? Long Zai asked tentatively. Yes, yes. That's the name. He's called Flowing Light Ghost Daoist. Dongqin immediately revealed her wrinkles and said happily. Long Zai took a deep breath. Her voice was a little hoarse as she growled, "That's impossible." They were fellow disciples. One controlled time, the other controlled space. Why didn't he help his own junior brother, but help someone else kill his own junior brother? Yi Qinghan and the others didn't know about Flowing Light Ghost Daoist's prestige in the Dragonline realm at this moment. The celestial treasure battle body of the previous generation had died of depression, but he was still alive. It was clear that his cultivation and strength had reached the peak of perfection. I heard from my master that back then, sovereign god Lu Guang seemed to have foreseen something. However, there was nothing she could do about it. She could only tell her all about her whereabouts. However, as to why she told her, I have no idea. Dongqin continued. Thank you, fellow Daoist. I'll definitely repay your kindness. Long Zai bowed to Dongqin. I'm an adult, so I'll definitely be busy during the new year. I can't possibly abandon my home for the sake of work. Everyone, please be considerate. I'll start making up for it this afternoon. Since the start of the new year, I haven't updated anything except for the first day of the new year. I've updated at least twice a day for the rest of the year. Don't scold me anymore. If you find someone scolding me again, you'll be permanently banned. No matter who you scold, the book review section is for everyone to vent their frustrations, not for scolding. Chapter 838. After this discussion, the relationship between Yi Qinghan's group and Long Zai eased a little, but they were still a little wary. Back in the room, the four of them squeezed into one room. Yi Qinghan felt uncomfortable no matter how he looked at it. The four of them couldn't meditate all the time, so they had to sleep and rest. Sleeping between three great beauties, Yi Qinghan admitted that he wasn't Lu Xiaohui, so he couldn't stay calm. After resisting for a few days, even little virgins like Dongqin and Zixian laughed. They looked at Yi Qinghan teasingly and asked if he and Emperor Yi should have some alone time. Emperor Yi shyly lowered his head, and Yi Qinghan could only smile sheepishly. However, Zixian and Dongqin were very playful. In the middle of the night, they deliberately stripped down to their undergarments. Their creamy skin was faintly discernible, causing Yi Qinghan to be somewhat dazed. The divine bird added fuel to the fire and kept shouting to push the three of them down. Yi Qinghan was so angry that he almost threw it out of the window to have a taste of the spatial storm. Emperor Yi also knew that Yi Qinghan was having a hard time holding it in. He looked at the two great witches in disdain and snorted, "If you dare to tease my master again, he will eat you." Dongqin was much more lively than Zixian. She teased, "Let him come if he can. I'm not afraid of him, as long as you're willing to." Ha ha ha. Zixian snickered. She looked at Yi Qinghan, who had been calm all this time. Nothing could make him change his expression, but he had been sulking for the past few days. It was an achievement to be able to tease a gentleman like this. Emperor Yi knew that the two were deliberately teasing Yi Qinghan. He was unwilling to give up and snorted, "Master, I support you. Make them shut up." Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. He wrapped his clothes around himself and walked downstairs. He found Long Zai sitting at the table below, seemingly thinking about something. However, she was still wearing pajamas, and her curves were even more irresistible. Yi Qinghan prepared to leave halfway. He would rather face the teasing of the three people upstairs than face Long Zai. "Why did you run away as soon as you saw me, fellow Taoist Yi? Are you afraid that I will eat you?" Long Zai looked at Yi Qinghan's ugly and aggrieved expression and immediately guessed the reason. Long Zai couldn't help but smile. "Ahem, definitely not. I just came down to get some fresh air." Yi Qinghan laughed dryly. "Hypocrite, since you want to do it, why don't you do it?" "I hate men like you the most," Long Zai said with disdain. The corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. Sure enough, there was not a single powerful woman who was easy to deal with. To be able to get to where they were today, whether it was Long Zai, Dong Qin, or Purple Deity, if any of them wanted to tease a man, the man would not be able to resist their charms. "Humph," Yi Qinghan harumphed coldly. He just wanted to be intimate with Emperor Yi, but he didn't have the chance. He didn't have such thoughts towards Zixian and Dong Qin, and he didn't want to hurt Emperor Yi. As for Long Zai, a woman who was seductive to the bone, she was like a bag of explosives. If he touched her, he would definitely be blown to pieces. What? Did I say something wrong? Others don't even have the chance to see me like this. Now that I'm standing in front of you, you're actually putting on an act. Do you not have the guts, or do you not have the stick? Long Zai mocked. "Dao friend Long, please don't joke around. Can you please give me another room? Aren't there many empty rooms here?" Yi Qinghan pleaded helplessly. "No. It'll be spring in 3 days, and there will be a large number of experts coming to admire the sea of flowers. When that time comes, the ghostly wind will disappear, and this place will be like a holy land. In 3 days, there will be a sea of people here. It'll be difficult for you to even find a place to set up camp, let alone an inn," Long Zai said firmly. Yi Qinghan frowned at Long Zai. He had a feeling that she was purposely not giving him a room. "You don't believe me? You'll know in 3 days. Those who book rooms are definitely the top experts in Qianxi City, or even in the hundreds of cities around here. Trash like you can't even book a room. You should be satisfied with me giving you a room. If you feel that it's unfair to squeeze in with 3 great beauties, I don't mind you squeezing in with me, as long as you dare," Long Zai said disdainfully. Yi Qinghan was so angry that his entire body trembled. He couldn't tolerate this anymore. These 3 women didn't even treat him as a man. "Don't force me," Yi Qinghan said somewhat angrily. He. What can you do if I force you? My ability to serve men is not something that those 3 women can compare to. I'll definitely make you feel like you're in heaven. Lust? Do you dare to come?" Long Zai retorted disdainfully. Then, Long Zai stood up. Her tall and straight posture was simply mesmerizing to the bone, making it hard for anyone to resist. Gulp, Yi Qinghan swallowed his saliva and averted his gaze. At this moment, the door to Sky Room number 1 suddenly opened and the 3 seductresses ran out, glaring angrily at Long Zai. "Boss Long, are you mocking us for not knowing how to take care of men?" Dong Qin asked angrily. What was the most important thing for women? That was to not be outdone by other women. Humph. Zixian snorted coldly to express her dissatisfaction. Emperor Yi was even more furious. She was Yi Qinghan's official wife. There was no one better than her. Today, she was being mocked for not knowing how to take care of men. Although Yi Qinghan had always been the one taking the lead, she cooperated quite well. "Master, get on the bed. Don't lower yourself to her level." Emperor Yi said that he was willing to let Yi Qinghan eat Dong Qin and Zixian, but in his heart, he was definitely unwilling. Moreover, Long Zai was the lady boss who had seen countless people and understood the hearts of men. If Long Zai used her seductive techniques to steal Yi Qinghan's heart, it would be even more difficult to get it back in the future. Long Zai originally wanted to tease Yi Qinghan, but she didn't expect to bring out the three women as well. Unwilling to admit defeat, she couldn't help but reveal a sly smile and said proudly, "Although I don't say that I've seen countless people, when it comes to serving men, the three of you still wet behind the ears can't compare to me. I have this confidence." Once the four women started arguing, there would definitely be no end to it. Yi Qinghan was a little dumbfounded. He didn't know how to deal with this at all. Emperor Yi and the other two women were proud daughters of the heavens. In terms of strength, the three of them together could easily kill a chief god. Now, they were actually being looked down on for not knowing how to serve men. Moreover, the three of them together were no match for one woman. This was truly intolerable. "I refuse to believe this," Dong Qin said angrily. "Then let's give it a try. If you can get him into your room today, I'll lose." Long Zai was extremely confident. Her body moved and she immediately appeared in front of Yi Qinghan. She used her chief god-level seductive techniques and directly blasted them into Yi Qinghan's mind. Even a chief god couldn't block this kind of seductive technique, let alone Yi Qinghan. His soul was immediately taken over by Long Zai. Yi Qinghan only felt that his soul was very tired. Meanwhile, Long Zai was like a warm harbor. He really wanted to jump into her arms and enjoy that warmth. His legs moved involuntarily. Emperor Yi was shocked. He didn't expect this woman's seductive techniques to have reached such a level. No matter how strong Yi Qinghan's will was, he couldn't win against a chief god's will. Moreover, this was a super chief god seductive technique combined with a soul attack. Chapter 839. Yi Qinghan didn't expect the four women to lose their pride and start fighting in front of everyone in order to save face. Sure enough, beauties were everywhere, but fighting over men was bad luck. Before he could react, his soul was taken over by Long Zai. Who was Long Zai? If she was easy to mess with, she would have been taken over by others. Not only was she a core god, but there were also two powerful core gods behind her. Her soul was much, much more powerful than Yi Qinghan's. Furthermore, Zixian and Dong Qin were both soul-type powerhouses. As for Renhuang Yi, there was no need to even mention him. In terms of the strength of his soul, Yi Qinghan was the weakest among the four of them. When Renhuang Yi, Zixian, and Dong Qin attacked, he collapsed on the spot. Ding! The bell on Emperor Ye's wrist suddenly rang, trying to recall Yi Qinghan's soul. Zixian even opened her strange eyes and blasted them into Yi Qinghan's mind, making him feel as if his soul was struck by lightning. The tearing pain almost drove him crazy. Before Long Zai could even catch his breath, Dong Qin actually also activated her soul seduction technique, wanting to seize control of him. The four of them treated Yi Qinghan as their personal property. However, Renhuang Yi and the other two still hoped that their side would win. Thus, when they joined forces, they were actually evenly matched with Long Zai. But this made things difficult for Yi Qinghan. His face was pale, and his soul didn't belong to him anymore. Even his physical body was controlled by others. The four of them fought like this. The inn was extremely quiet, but it was a terrifying battle. How could Long Zai lose to three little women? She was known as the most seductive woman in the Dragonline Plain. No man could escape from her seductive charm. If she lost to these three brats today, she wouldn't be able to go out and explore in the future. Emperor Yi and the others were even more unwilling to lose. Which one of them wasn't an existence like the sun in the sky? Could the three of them really lose to a woman? No matter how seductive she was. Not even a chief god. The four of them danced in front of Yi Qinghan in their pajamas. Pockmarked Man, Old Second Ma, and the others did not even dare to show their faces. They knew that Boss Long was competing with the three women. If they ran out to join in the fun, they would definitely not be able to see the sun tomorrow. Yi Qinghan's facial muscles began to twitch. His soul felt like it was about to explode. Only when faced with four powerful and terrifying souls did he realize how insignificant he was. At this moment, if any of the four wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as waving their hands. Fortunately, all four of them wanted to win and didn't want to hurt him. Otherwise, he would have to meet the Lord of Hell. Help me, defend. Yi Qinghan could not even speak clearly. He could only shout through his soul, hoping that the divine bird and the golden crow would help him. The divine beast in his body also began to panic. These four women had gone crazy. They didn't even care about Emperor Yi. They only wanted to fight for control of Yi Qinghan. Long Zai's lips curled up. His fingertips brushed past Yi Qinghan's face. The 5 fingers of his left hand grabbed Yi Qinghan's large hand and moved around his proud body like an electric current, penetrating Yi Qinghan's defenses. Endure it. Otherwise, those 3 crazy women will torture you until you go crazy. The divine bird was panicking. It couldn't even leave now. It was completely trapped in Yi Qinghan's consciousness. It could only communicate with Yi Qinghan through the power of the contract. Yi Qinghan wanted to shift his eyes away from Long Zai's face, but he couldn't move. His fingertips trembled. When they touched the jade peaks, his heart collapsed. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. This wasn't fun at all. He could die at any moment. Zixian's purple eyes forced their way into Yi Qinghan's eyes. Their eyes met, and her voice was unprecedentedly clear and soft. She whispered, "Qinghan, come with me." This was the will of the people with different pupils. Zixian had never used this kind of seduction technique to seduce a man. This was the first time she used it on Yi Qinghan. Her competitive spirit overcame her sense of shame. She didn't feel awkward at all. In fact, deep down, she even hoped that Yi Qinghan would follow her. Yi Qinghan's soul maintained its last bit of clarity. He stubbornly guarded his heart as he looked into Zixian's eyes. There was no disgust or joy. The tip of his foot moved slightly, but he was quickly suppressed by Long Zai. She actually directly pulled Yi Qinghan's large hand into her bosom and gently blew into his ear. It was unknown what she said, but Yi Qinghan's consciousness was immediately lost, allowing the 4 women to fight over him. It's over. Are these 4 women crazy? The divine bird was at a loss. It could no longer stay out of this. Its own soul was a little out of control. It was about to be suppressed by Long Zai. Think of a way. Yi Qinghan's last bit of clarity was about to be suppressed. He growled in horror. These 4 women are too strong. This divine bird is no match for them. The divine bird said bluntly. Just as Yi Qinghan was communicating with the divine bird, Long Zai actually used the will of the main god to block Yi Qinghan's consciousness. She didn't allow Emperor Yi, Zixian, or Dongqin to control Yi Qinghan's consciousness. She couldn't even seduce Yi Qinghan. This isn't fair. You're using strength, not women's abilities. Aren't you better at serving men than us? If you have the ability, then don't suppress his soul. Let him choose for himself. Emperor Yi said angrily. Such a hypocrite. If I let him choose, he'll definitely pretend to be a good person. If I want to take him away, he won't step out of my room tomorrow. Without controlling his soul, I can make him my slave and puppet. Long Zai said calmly, I said that the 3 of you combined can't compare to me in serving men. That's because I'm confident. I'm not mocking you for not being beautiful, mature, or feminine. That's exactly what you mean. Besides, I believe that my master won't be dispirited over beauty. Hurry up and let go of my master. I won't argue with you. Emperor Yi said angrily. Don't trust men too much. If you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you. If he's willing to go back tomorrow, I'll apologize to you. Long Zai was disdainful. She grabbed Yi Qinghan's clothes, and in a flash, she returned to her room. Boom! The door was sealed. The three of them were left looking at each other. Tomorrow, we'll rely on our own abilities. I won't bully you based on strength. As long as the three of you can take him back, you can say whatever you want. Long Zai said something from inside the room that made Emperor Yi stomp his feet. What do we do? Zixian was helpless. This Long Zai was too strong. There was no way they could win against her by force. Don't we still have another chance tomorrow? I don't believe that Yi Qinghan will really hide under her skirt and refuse to come out. Dong Qin said angrily. Emperor Yi was so angry that her teeth were itching. Her jade peaks heaved as she watched her man being taken away. However, she was confident that even if Long Zai was the incarnation of a nine-tailed fox, she wouldn't be able to take Yi Qinghan away. He would definitely return tomorrow. However, when she thought about that woman wreaking havoc on Yi Qinghan's body, she couldn't stand it. Inside Long Zai's room, Long Zai restrained Yi Qinghan's body. However, she didn't suppress his soul. Their eyes met, and she said calmly, "Don't worry, I won't change your soul. I just want to serve you for a night and let you experience the charm of a real woman. Then, I'll see if you're willing to leave. If you're like all men in the world, then don't waste those three girls." Yi Qinghan was speechless. Just how deeply had this woman been hurt by men? She was killing all men in one fell swoop. Boss Long, don't mess around. Even if you serve me to the heavens, I won't give up on my son, Yi Qinghan said anxiously. Chapter 840. Yi Qinghan was really anxious now. Seeing Long Zai's serious expression, there was nothing he could do. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, "Let's talk this out. Let me go first. I have a wife, so don't do anything rash. I have my own principles and bottom line. If I only cared about physical pleasure, I wouldn't have suffered so much to forge the 9 revolutions chaotic Tao body. Is that so? I don't believe it." Long Zai was disdainful. She reached out her hand and gently lifted Yi Qinghan's battle robe. Her fingertips brushed across his chest, and the robe fell off automatically. The powerful battle robe had been personally forged by him, but it was as fragile as tofu. It was cut open by her fingers. Hiss, hiss, Yi Qinghan gasped. This Long Zai was too strong. She was unbelievably strong. She was definitely a top-tier existence among the chief gods. Although Wu Yan had the 9 revolutions chaotic Tao body and had just become a chief god, he was definitely not as strong as Long Zai. Does it feel good? If it does, then scream. I believe Emperor Yi and the others are still listening outside, Long Zai mocked. Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth. He would rather die than scream today. Otherwise, he would be too ashamed to face Emperor Yi tomorrow. Impossible. Boss Long. I've never begged anyone in my life. Let me go first. We can talk this out, okay? Yi Qinghan said firmly. I like challenging things. Since you say you won't scream, I'll make you scream. Long Zai smiled faintly. She opened her jade-like hands and her divine power flowed out, shattering all the clothes on Yi Qinghan's body. However, she didn't hurt him at all. It was obvious how precise her control over her power was. Yi Qinghan was speechless. Was there something wrong with this woman? What's in it for you? Yi Qinghan was a little angry. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't beat her, he would have stood up and slapped her. There's no benefit, but there's also no harm. At least we can enjoy ourselves for a night. You'll be comfortable, and I'll be comfortable, ha ha ha. Long Zai giggled, her breasts bouncing up and down. Her outer layer of undergarments had been removed, leaving only a soft, transparent muslin covering her body. However, it was as good as nothing. It couldn't block Yi Qinghan's line of sight at all. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes, not wanting to look. You'd better open your eyes, or I'll strip you naked and throw you outside. Long Zai threatened. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. His blood was boiling and rushing straight to his head because Long Zai was twisting her waist. Her body was so soft that it was almost boneless. She was like a water snake lying in front of his chest. Every time her tongue touched his chest, Yi Qinghan felt like he was being electrocuted. If you have the guts, then don't be hard. Don't worry, in the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, as long as you don't get hard, I'll let you out. Long Zai said teasingly. Yi Qinghan was quite angry. This woman was an evildoer. If he could control whether that thing was hard or not, then he wouldn't be a man. Moreover, this was a demoness in front of him. How could it not be hard? Deep down, you also want it. You just don't want to ruin your beautiful image in the hearts of other women. That's why you're holding back, isn't that right? Long Zai smiled. Her fingertips gently slid around his lower abdomen. She didn't believe that she couldn't attract Yi Qinghan today. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. Long Zai had really misunderstood him. He really didn't want to provoke this explosive bag. If he really wanted a woman, then he might as well take Medusa. Why would he look for an outsider? No. It really isn't. Yi Qinghan replied with certainty. But Long Zai didn't believe this. The more Yi Qinghan rejected her, the more she wanted to conquer him. Ha ha ha, this is fun. Tonight, I don't believe that you'll keep rejecting me. I'll make you take the initiative to come over and offer yourself to me. Long Zai laughed loudly. She tore off Yi Qinghan's last piece of underwear and danced on the bed again. This dance was intoxicating, enchanting, charming, and enchanting. Her perfect body was in full view. There was a strand of green grass clinging to the pink stream. She appeared completely naked before Yi Qinghan's eyes. Don't close your eyes. If you do, it means that you're afraid. It also means that your mind isn't strong enough. In the future, don't pretend to be a saint in front of me. There are no saints in this world. Even Long Zai's voice was very soft, making it hard for anyone to refuse. Her slender legs were straight and slender. She could even clamp a piece of paper between them. Her lower abdomen was flat, without a trace of fat. Her perfect toes lightly touched the drooping dragon root and gently rubbed it. Yi Qinghan almost collapsed. This woman was simply a demoness. Soon, his lower body was out of his control. Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth. He wanted to move his fingers, but he couldn't. Tisk, tsk. It's still early. Don't worry. Long Zai stopped twisting her body and gradually knelt beside Yi Qinghan. The tip of her tongue gently stroked his neck, kissing every inch of his skin. His bronze muscles were tense, but he could still feel the warmth of her tongue. Don't be hard. Otherwise, I'll be disappointed. Long Zai kissed him while her soft fingers slid around his chest. Yi Qinghan watched as Long Zai continuously moved down. Gradually, she reached his lower abdomen. A warm current rushed down. His root immediately reacted, breaking out in a cold sweat. What are you doing? Yi Qinghan asked in a panic. Oh. You can't see, but I'll let you see. Long Zai stopped moving and placed a pillow under Yi Qinghan's head so that he could see below. Sure enough, after Long Zai kissed the area around his root, the tip of her tongue gradually approached his asterisk. Although it wasn't completely hard yet, this was the result of Yi Qinghan trying his best to suppress it. It's quite big. It might look good, but it's useless. It won't be good if you leak at any time. Long Zai knelt beside Yi Qinghan's legs and tried to wrap her tongue around it. She found that she couldn't wrap it around at all. It was too big. If Yi Qinghan hadn't clenched his teeth, he would have screamed on the spot. The feeling was too wonderful. It was as if his soul had ascended to the top of the clouds. Does it feel good? If it does, then scream. If you don't scream, how will I know if you feel good? Long Zai had never teased a man like this. At this moment, her face was slightly red, but it added to her charm. Yi Qinghan had been teased like this before. Although it felt good, he felt as if his soul had been humiliated by Long Zai. So Yi Qinghan didn't make a sound. Long Zai's competitive spirit rose and she directly placed the tip of his *** in her mouth. She was actually a little too full. The heat instantly took over Yi Qinghan's rationality. Ah! Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth and growled. His entire body tensed up. Seeing her snickering while calling out for her baby, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't know if she was doing it on purpose or not. He also didn't know why she was messing around like this. Could it be that she really wanted to prove that she was good at serving men? As soon as Long Zai heard Yi Qinghan groan in a low voice, her pride multiplied. She worked even harder to suck in and out, causing her *** to swell. Her mouth almost couldn't hold it anymore. Yi Qinghan raised his head. He didn't want to look or think about it. If he screamed today, his life would be over. He couldn't afford to lose. Chapter 841. The Dragon Gate Inn was still quiet. Emperor Yi and the other two stood in front of the Sky Room 1, which was only a wall away from Long Zai's room. It was unknown whether Long Zai was doing it on purpose or not, but she did not set up a soundproof barrier at all. If you're comfortable, then scream. As long as you scream, I'll let you go. When Emperor Yi heard this, he was flustered and exasperated. He did not know what to do at all. Although Long Zai's room did not have a soundproof enchantment, it was equipped with offensive and defensive arrays. Unless they tore down the Long Men Inn from the inside, they would not be able to withstand the ghostly winds outside. However, if they tore down the Long Men Inn, Long Zai might be able to escape. What do we do? Zi Xian and Dong Qin were very unwilling to accept losing to Long Zai just like that. How could they be willing to accept this? They wanted to fight back. Humph. Master won't scream, and I won't stay by her side. Let her dream. Emperor Yi snorted and comforted himself. Inside the room, Long Zai was purposely messing around with Yi Qinghan, teasing him in all sorts of ways. Yi Qinghan was at a loss for words. Yi Qinghan forced himself to endure. Long Zai was like a poppy flower at the peak of a mountain. She was beautiful, captivating, and fatal. Once a woman went all out, men were no match for her. Gradually, Yi Qinghan fell into a disadvantage and became Long Zai's plaything. The ghost wind outside was still howling, and it seemed to be even fiercer. Those who were familiar with Flower Sea City knew that the fiercer the ghost wind was, the arrival of spring, and the Flower Sea would appear. There would be no more ghost wind for the entire spring. At that time, Hanqing County would reappear as the paradise of Flower Sea City. At that time, the Flower Sea would not be colorful, but blood red, dyeing half the sky red. It was incomparably beautiful and even chilling. At this moment, more and more experts were gathering in Qianxi City, waiting for the arrival of spring. Most of them were here to admire the scenery of Huahai City in the past. The beauty of the mirage was a perfect representation of the prosperous and magnificent city of Huahai City. Not everyone had the chance to see it. Even more people had prepared a large number of divine treasures and were prepared to barter. Some over-gods would even take out treasures that they did not need in exchange for cultivation resources. Flower Sea City would be filled with experts, but today, it was still as bleak as before. The sound of panting spread far and wide along with the wind. All the experts stayed at the periphery and did not get close to the Dragon Gate Inn. Some of them were admiring the blood-colored sea of flowers, while others had a very simple goal. They wanted to barter for treasures that they did not need for treasures that they urgently needed. Even though the Dragon's Gate was extremely remote, there were a large number of treasures gathered here. These were rare godly items that could only be seen once in 100 years, causing a commotion every now and then. But at this moment, Yi Qinghan was in deep trouble. Outside the door, Emperor Yi, Dongqin, and the others could only endure it silently with red faces. "Let's go back to the room and talk about it tomorrow." Emperor Yi was still sober. He really could not stand Long Zai, so he shook his head and woke himself up. He felt a bit uneasy. Long Zai's ability to serve men made her concede defeat. Just this shamelessness alone was enough to make men willing to be dissolute ghosts under her skirt. Dongqin and Zixian's faces were red. They felt a certain part of their body itch. If not for their shyness, they would have already reached out and scratched it. Just as they took a step forward and gently rubbed against each other, the two of them could not help but groan. Their divine senses shook, and they almost lost control. Panting sounds rang out continuously. Only now did Zixian and Dongqin understand how difficult it was for Yi Qinghan to not moan in that room. If it were any other man, they would have gone crazy long ago. If he moans, I won't find it strange at all. But if he can hold it in for a night, I'll wonder if he's a man. Zixian smiled bitterly. I think he definitely won't be able to hold it in and will take the initiative. Will he come back tomorrow to see Taoist Emperor Ye's charm? Dongqin shook her head. She thought about it from another perspective. If she were a man in that room, she would also be unable to help but take the initiative. How could she despise Yi Qinghan? Emperor Yi felt very wronged. Before, it was always Yi Qinghan who took the initiative. He did not know that there were so many ways to serve men. I'll teach you a lesson tomorrow. Emperor Yi stomped his feet and ran back to the room directly. However, he did not block his perception. He continued to eavesdrop on Long Zai's panting and the way she served men. The more he listened, the more excited he became. Zixian and Dongqin did not block their perception either. They even extended their divine senses into the second room to spy on Long Zai's actions. Their faces were red. They did not know what Long Zai's goal was at the beginning, but now it was obvious. She wanted to show off her ability. She had indeed surpassed the three demonesses. No matter how talented they were, when it came to serving men, they had to concede defeat. Even she would be defeated by her pomegranate skirt. 2 hours later, Yi Qinghan finally could not hold it in any longer. His breathing was ragged. Long Zai found the right opportunity to undo the seal on Yi Qinghan's body. He flipped over and suppressed Long Zai. His face was red and he said angrily, "Since you like to play, I'll play with you to the end. Come on. I beg you." The entire inn fell into a frenzy. No one was able to hold it in anymore. The ghostly wind outside became even wilder and more violent. Woo woo woo, boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. Sand and stones were swept up and smashed against the walls. The sound was endless. The ground outside was glowing red. It was as if fresh blood was gushing out from the depths of the earth. The setting sun shone brightly, and the world was red. From afar, this place looked like hell. It made one shudder. Chapter 842. In the upper plain, Yi Qinghan had only seen the tip of the iceberg, and he felt that it was very dangerous. Fortunately, Long Zai did not choose to kill him. Otherwise, he would not be a match for him. However, the middle plane was not any weaker than the upper plane. In addition to the celestial treasure battle body, even the great demon god Dao body had appeared. The battle between them was the most intense, but there were also a few dark horses. Li Feng, Gu Qingyu, and Qitian Monkey King were the strongest. They were not any weaker than the top 10 battle bodies, and even surpassed some of them. No one knew who was the strongest among the same level. Many of the older generation's experts began to hunt these battle bodies and experts. The group of people from the insane sect was a thorn in many people's eyes. Di Long Tian, Lin Wutian, Great God Chen Tian, Empty God Yi, the mature empty spirit body, Xian Yain of the older generation, and so on. Every one of them was an existence that could dominate a region. If the Lord God did not appear, no one could compete with them. Another group of experts stepped out of the mythology continent and began to experience life and death. The leaders were Wang Chen, Miao Miao, and the others. Kanyang and Zhikan, who had disappeared for a long time, appeared together as brothers. As soon as they appeared, they crushed 2 of the top experts in the world and became the dark horses. On this day, many people were crowding towards the Sisui plain. The surrounding plains were moving at a much faster speed. Now, the Sisui plain had condensed hundreds of small plains and dozens of middle plains. It was not much smaller than the upper plains. The space and gravity had become abnormally strong. Even the master gods could not recklessly shatter the plains. I heard that today is the day of the battle between the king of killers Li Feng and the 6th battle body, the black tiger battle body, Tiger Liang. This king of killers is really a genius. He defeated the 10th, 9th, and 7th battle bodies consecutively. Is it because the battle bodies have become weaker, or is it because Li Feng is too strong? It's because Li Feng is too monstrous. You haven't seen him in action. His 7th-ranked astral battle body is extremely powerful. He single-handedly killed a master god and remained undefeated after 3,000 moves. His stars of fury can reverse the flow of the heavens and shatter stars. He fought Li Feng for 3 whole days. If it weren't for the great demonic divine Taoist body saving him at the last moment, he might have been killed by Li Feng. Many people were rushing towards the Sisui mountain in the Sisui plain. When they saw acquaintances, they would have a discussion. Now, in order to see Li Feng and the other monstrous geniuses in action, they didn't hesitate to waste a lot of time. When the powerhouses of a generation fought, as long as they focused on comprehending, it would be more effective than cultivating in seclusion for 100 years. Gu Qingyu and Xian Yain of the inner sect of the insane sect quietly appeared near the Sisui mountain. However, they didn't gather. Yi Chen Tian and Qin Wentian disguised themselves as a middle-aged couple. They didn't dare to reveal their true bodies because the great demonic divine Taoist body wasn't the only one who was looking for them. Many other powerful forces were also looking for them. Their purpose was obvious. They either wanted to kill Qin Wentian or bring him back to the great demonic divine mountain to awaken the inheritance. Di Long Tian also arrived at the Sisui mountain in advance. He was dressed in green and looked very simple. He held the heavenly path killing god sword in his hand and hugged it to his chest. His eyes were clear. Li Feng and the group of people from the insane sect didn't need to discuss anything. They secretly formed an alliance. If one side was in trouble, others would come to their aid. Otherwise, Li Feng would have been dead long ago. When he fought with the astral battle physique, both sides suffered great losses. One of the over-gods wanted to take advantage of the situation and kill him. In the end, he was defeated by Gu Qingyu, Di Long Tian, and Lin Wutian. The name of the insane sect spread throughout the insane sect. With more than 30 inner sect members, the 3 of them defeated an over-god. If all of them gathered together, one could imagine how powerful they would be. However, Li Feng had also saved the people of the insane sect. In this era, if one wanted to survive by relying on one's strength, one would have to hide one's whereabouts and not attack in front of others. Otherwise, it would be easy to be killed. The reason why Li Feng dared to challenge Tiger Liang so arrogantly in the Sisui plain was naturally because Gu Qingyu and the others were standing behind him. Yi Qinghan had disappeared from the middle plane for a long time. No one knew where he went, but they all knew that he was with Emperor Yi and the celestial battle physique. The descendants of the great demon god and the witch tribe were looking for Yi Qinghan, or rather, for the celestial battle physique. They wanted to restore the chaotic era and let the chaotic universe reappear. Only when the chaotic universe reappeared would an existence like the chaos god appear. The present over-gods were fundamentally different from the chaos god of the past. Take the battle constitution for example. Compared to the battle constitution of the past, the over-gods were far inferior. Back then, the battle constitution of the past was invincible, but now, except for the first 6 over-gods, the rest of the over-gods had been defeated, and not just by one person. Many people began to doubt the power of the battle constitution. However, only the people of the two factions understood that once the chaotic universe reappeared, the battle physiques would receive the most orthodox inheritance, and their power would increase by more than 10 times. This was the advantage of the battle physique. No one knew what had happened to Qin Wentian, or why he had given up on the inheritance of the demon god mountain and kept an eye on Yi Qingtian. However, Qin Wentian was still the third-ranked ethereal physique, second only to the great demon god and the 9 revolutions chaos Tao physique. How could the people of the two factions give up on him? The two of them were wanted by the people of the two factions. It was unknown how much they suffered, but they didn't complain. Yi Qingtian and his wife appeared at the foot of Sisui mountain. They looked at the sea of people around them. At the peak of the mountain, Tiger Liang, who had the black tiger combat form, was holding a sharp sword. Opposite him stood Li Feng. They held 3-foot-long swords in their hands, exuding an imposing aura. Li Feng's goal was very clear, and that was to defeat all the other battle physiques and become the true number 1 under the heavens, a supreme king of the same realm. The reputation of the Killer King reappeared. He attacked everyone mercilessly, regardless of whether it was the sorcerer tribe or the great demon god's bloodline. Once he attacked, unless the people of the two factions came to his rescue, he would automatically flee. Otherwise, he would be killed on the spot. "Who do you think will win today?" a middle-aged powerhouse asked a half-step lord beside him in a low voice. "I don't know. The astral battle physique is already so powerful. I'm afraid the 6th-ranked Black Tiger battle physique won't be any weaker than him." Li Feng's glory might come to an end today, the half-step lord said without hesitation. "Then you think highly of the Black Tiger battle physique. I'm the exact opposite of you. I think Li Feng's glory will continue and become the supreme king of this generation," the middle-aged man continued. Yi Qingtian wore a large hat and a black robe that covered his entire body. He glanced at the two people beside him from the corner of his eye, and a divine light flashed in his eyes. However, his gaze was fixed on a mountain peak. It was the Clear Spring Peak, a subsidiary peak of the Sisui mountain. Halfway up the mountain, a young man in black stood as straight as a javelin. His entire body exuded a different aura that was intimidating. No one dared to stand near him. He had the great demon god Tao physique, an existence on par with Wuxia. He was also one of the 2 most powerful people of the younger generation. He's the descendant of the great demon god, Mo Li. His cultivation level is unfathomable. "Don't provoke him for now," Qin Wentian said softly as he held Yi Qingtian's large hand. Chapter 843. Outside Mount Sisui, a large number of experts had gathered. There were lords of the older generation and kings of the new generation. There was a sea of people, and none of them were easy to deal with. They were all waiting for an opportunity. However, the two camps were temporarily united. The 10 combat constitutions could not die, at least not before the chaotic universe was reborn. Both sides were ambitious. They wanted to unify the chaotic universe and become the supreme creator father. With such thoughts in mind, it was no wonder that the Purple Emperor roared before his death, saying that both camps would die a horrible death. For their own selfish desires, they had almost crippled the entire universe. No one knew how many lives had been lost, but in the end, both sides suffered great losses. It was extremely laughable. At that moment, Tiger Liang did not underestimate Li Feng at all. There were not many who could defeat Li Feng for sure. Even the luminous martial combat constitution could not guarantee a win. As for the fourth-ranked Void Dao constitution and ethereal constitution, they had yet to mature. Meanwhile, the great demon god Dao constitution and chaotic 9 transformations Dao constitution had already become lords. They were not on the same level and could not be compared. Both of them flicked their scabbards with their fingertips, accumulating power. Li Feng was looking for Gu Qingyu's location, looking for a way to retreat. At that moment, Gu Qingyu was standing on an ancient tree with his sword in his arms. His eyes were fixed on Mo Li, preventing him from attacking. Li Feng found where Gu Qingyu was standing. He drew his sword and stabbed. It was as fast as lightning and as powerful as a rainbow. It was as if what he drew was not a sword but the might of heaven and earth. The wind and clouds suddenly changed, and the mountains and rivers were stirred. The sword's whistle was so loud that even half-step lords trembled in fear, not daring to look directly at it. Great solitary desolate imprisoning sword technique. The Black Tiger combat constitution had received most of the inheritance, after all. His attack was a top lord-level secret skill. His sword intent soared into the sky, suppressing all Daos. With a single strike, heaven and earth became a prison. Solitary sand fell, and a deathly stillness spread for thousands of miles. Boom! The two figures separated as soon as they collided. The highest peak of Mount Sisui was directly cut open. Sword chi reverberated, and the heroes were sent flying, not daring to take the aftershock head-on. Only a few lords remained where they were, waiting for an opportunity. Whoosh, 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 Tiger Liang's sword strike turned into 10,000 swords. He formed seals with his hands, controlling the swords to annihilate all abilities, surrounding them. Prisoner. Die. Tiger Liang growled, and a huge black tiger materialized behind him. It looked like a chaotic divine beast. Roar. The black tiger had almost materialized. Its roar was powerful enough to swallow mountains and rivers, causing the mountains and plains to crumble. Many half-step lords coughed up blood on the spot. Their eyes were filled with horror. Only then did they understand exactly how powerful the 10 combat constitutions of the Chaos Era were. Li Feng had defeated the Astral Combat Constitution not only because of his combat strength but also because he was blessed with providence. If the Astral Combat Constitution had the Star Saber from back then, Li Feng would not have been able to win at all. Black Tiger and Tiger Liang pounced as fast as lightning. Their valiant aura was unstoppable. It was as if the heavens were blocking the heavens, and the Buddha was devouring the Buddha. God slaying, ghost slaying. A cold glint flashed across Li Feng's eyes, and his killing intent poured out in torrents. He had killed an unknown number of people, and his speed was already so fast that even chief gods were unable to clearly capture his trajectory. Ding! A beam of sword light shattered everything in its path. Wherever the sword Dao passed, even gods and ghosts would be souls under the sword. Boom! The sound of the void shattering rang out incessantly. For a mortal body to be able to display such power, that was the true peak of martial strength. The two rays of sword light smashed through the shackles of space and collided with each other. Bang! The force rushed out in all directions. Thousands of half-step lords and chief gods worked together to block it, suppressing the aftershocks within Mount Sisui. Thud, 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 Tiger Liang and Li Feng retreated continuously. The hard mountain rocks cracked from the center, and the ancient trees turned into rotten wood, unable to withstand a single blow. Mo Li and Gu Qingyu's clothes fluttered in the wind. Their eyes were not only fixed on the battlefield, but also on each other. The killing intent in their eyes was self-evident. The two powerhouses attacked ruthlessly and mercilessly, not holding back at all. They only wanted to suppress each other. Li Feng wanted to prove that the 10 major combat constitutions were nothing more than that. On the other hand, Tiger Liang wanted to prove that the 10 major combat constitutions did not live up to their reputation, but that they relied on true ability. With a wave of their hands, the duo's speed was extremely fast. If they were not careful, they would become a ghostly hero under each other's swords. No one spoke, only staring at the duo. Their battle could even affect the Lord's mental states, and the Lords would benefit greatly from it as well. With his half-step Lord-level secret skill, Li Feng could actually fight to a draw with the 6th-ranked Black Tiger combat constitution. Not only was Li shocked, but the Lord's Daoist hearts were thumping as well. Their hearts were beating faster and faster. 7 stars aligned, 8 desolation destruction. Swoosh! Li Feng's power was overwhelming. The Black Tiger combat constitution was the only thing in his eyes. He formed seals with both hands and forced out all 7 godheads, forming a divine sword. Divine light illuminated the sky, and the entire Sisui realm could see the light on Mount Sisui clearly. It was a shocking sight. Whoosh! The heavens were destroyed, and all laws were subdued. Li Feng shook lightly, and all of Tiger Liang's encirclement attacks turned into nothingness. Boom! Li Feng's divine power poured out, and his speed was extremely fast. He was prepared to fight Tiger Liang head-on. He was no match for Tiger Liang in terms of secret skills, so he could only look for his own advantage. Tiger Liang frowned, knowing that there was no way to dodge this sword, so he activated his most powerful secret skill again. The Black Tiger combat constitution appeared, and a Black Tiger appeared. Accompanied by a long howl from the divine sword, it collided forcefully with Li Feng. Instantly, heaven and earth cracked, and Mount Sisui was razed to the ground. Even the ancient tree under Gu Qingyu's feet was reduced to dust. His body was involuntarily sent flying dozens of meters, and he stood on a mountain peak again. Humph! Tiger Liang and Li Feng grunted at the same time. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. Both sides were injured. Li Feng did not have Lord-level secret skills, so it was already unbelievable that he could fight like this. However, Tiger Liang was not satisfied. Very dissatisfied. The two of them had used up more than half of their divine power in the short time it took for an incense stick to burn. Tiger Liang might have used up more, but he had Li behind him, so there was no need to worry. Li Feng, on the other hand, had to be on guard against assassination attempts. Only those who could survive were true experts. Li Feng was not stupid enough to put his life in the hands of others just to prove his strength. Tiger Liang wanted to attack and create an opportunity for others, but the web between his thumb and forefinger was trembling. He almost couldn't hold his sword. His eyes were fixed on Li Feng, and he coldly said, "Li Feng, I'll definitely kill you next time. I'll wait for you. It won't be long. We'll still be here in a year. If I don't defeat you, it'll be my loss, and I'll never challenge anyone again," Li Feng coldly replied. Li Feng had never been defeated in his life. This was also the first time he had fought to a draw. He had once regarded Yi Qinghan as his opponent, and it was still the same now. The only person he didn't have the confidence to defeat was Yi Qinghan. Even though he and Tiger Liang were both injured, he was confident that as long as he fought without any burden, killing his opponent wouldn't be a problem at all. While everyone was still in high spirits, the battle between the two had already ended. Just as they were about to leave, Li suddenly soared into the sky and appeared not far from Gu Qingyu. "Gu Qingyu, I'll give you 3 months to make Yi Qinghan hand over the ethereal body. Otherwise, I'll start a massacre of the Kuang sect's inner sect. I'll kill 1 person a day until all of them are dead," Li domineeringly said. "The Kuang sect has already disbanded. I don't know Yi Qinghan's whereabouts. If you want to fight in 3 months, look for me first. It's best if you don't involve others. Otherwise, you'll kill, and so will I. Just restrain the people of the great demonic god's bloodline from leaving the demon god mountain. Gu Qingyu looked straight at Mo Li and replied even more domineeringly. Humph, you'll pay the price for those words. I'd like to see what will happen in 3 months. Mo Li swept his gaze over the crowd before looking at Di Longtian. He indifferently said, my first target will be you. Just pray that Yi Qinghan appears and hands over the ethereal body to me. Chapter 844. In the middle plain, Mo Li even threatened the insane sect in front of everyone for the sake of the 10 great constitutions. The 3-month deadline was imminent. Since Mo Li dared to say it, he would definitely do it. Di Longtian held the heavenly Tao killing sword. Since he dared to venture into the middle plane, he naturally wasn't afraid of death. Unless he became an over-god, he wouldn't be able to compete with Mo Li at all. I don't care about you. Di Longtian said coldly. Ha ha ha. Good. Insane sect, you're crazy enough to challenge the 10 great constitutions. I don't believe you. I'm a man of my word. If Yi Qinghan doesn't send the ethereal body to the demonic god mountain in 3 months, you won't be able to see the sun in 3 months. Don't worry, I won't suppress you with my realm. Mo Li's murderous aura radiated as he looked at everyone with disdain. Di Longtian curled his lips and held the heavenly Tao killing sword tightly, unwilling to be outdone. The next morning in the upper plane, Yi Qinghan's legs were floating. He had never felt so powerless before. Looking at Long Zai's disdainful face, he could only sigh. Boss Long, why are you doing this? Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Did I serve you well? How do I compare to those 3 little girls? Long Zai smiled sweetly. She knew that the 3 little beauties were listening, but she still asked deliberately. Yi Qinghan also knew that Emperor Yi was listening. To tell the truth, Emperor Yi and Zixian would beat him to death when he returned. Even gods wouldn't believe a lie. This demoness ability to serve men was something that even gods would linger on. No wonder Long Zai was so confident. She was willing to indulge in the land of tenderness. If you don't say anything, it means you admit it. It's useless to deny it. They saw what you did last night. Now, I'll give you a choice. You can choose to spend every night with me, or you can continue to follow the 3 of them. You won't even feel comfortable thinking about it, Long Zai said indifferently. Yi Qinghan was silent for a while. It wasn't for the choice, but to figure out why Long Zai was doing this. Was it really for entertainment? No matter how much a sovereign cared about his own body, he wouldn't play around like this. When Yi Qinghan fell silent, the 3 beauties in the room next door became anxious. If Yi Qinghan really chose to stay by Long Zai's side, then they would really lose. They would lose completely. Bang bang bang. Emperor Yi began to pound on the door. Zixian was also shouting outside. Didn't we agree on a fair competition? Open the door, I want him to see our choice. Dong Qin scolded angrily. Master. Are the 3 of us not as good as her? Come out. Emperor Yi was so anxious that he was about to cry. He had never been so flustered before and felt that Yi Qinghan was getting further and further away from him. There was a real possibility that he would be snatched away by that woman. It wasn't that she wasn't confident enough, it was just that Long Zai's flirtatious nature had conquered even women like them, let alone other women. Creak. Long Zai was confident that she could win against these 3 ignorant women. With a wave of her hand, she opened the door and let Emperor Yi and the other 2 into the room. Emperor Ye's face was full of tears. He looked at the pale-faced Yi Qinghan in panic. He knew that Long Zai had almost ruined him last night. It was very likely that he had fallen in love with that feeling. It was inevitable that he would panic. Master. I I don't know how to serve others. I won't make you this excited, but, if you like, we can serve you together. Don't go with her, okay? Emperor Yi chose to compromise. Even if he had to share him with Zixian and Dong Qin, he couldn't let an outsider take him away. Yi Qinghan didn't expect Emperor Yi to have so little confidence in him. He wanted to stand up and comfort him, but his divine power was restrained. His legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. In the end, he gave up on standing up. This way, even Zixian and Dong Qin misunderstood. The two of them were like angry birds glaring at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan. Don't make me look down on you. I don't believe that the three of us serving you will lose to a woman. Doesn't she have some experience? I believe that in a few days, her ability to serve men will be much better than hers. Dong Qin mocked disdainfully. Zixian also glared at Yi Qinghan and said angrily, "Look at us. Choose now. Do you want to continue sitting here or come with us?" Ahem. Yi Qinghan was very embarrassed. He coughed dryly and said in a low voice, "Don't misunderstand. I just want to know why Boss Long is doing this. Is it fun?" Yi Qinghan looked up at Long Zai, very puzzled. "Are you provoking me? You're not paying attention to my ability to serve people, but my purpose for doing so. What's going on in your head?" Long Zai glared at Yi Qinghan angrily. He felt that all his efforts last night had been trampled on by Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He was speechless. Saying what he was concerned about at this time was indeed a blow to Long Zai. I have my own bottom line and principles. Boss Long, I'm very sorry. I lost my composure last night. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Ha ha ha, do you like Renhuang Yi? Or is it because the three of them are top-notch and you don't want to give up the entire forest for a tree like me? We rely on numbers. This is the first time that a man hasn't even touched my hand. The three of us together can't compare to one of you. You rely on experience, we rely on strength. Boss Long, we're staying here. You're the boss. Don't you think it's embarrassing to do this? Dong Qin stepped forward and forcefully pulled Yi Qinghan up. Only then did she remember that his divine power was still sealed. She held him up and pressed her soft body against his arm. The four women were opposing each other, not giving any face. If they continued to argue, this inn would really be torn down from the inside. Yi Qinghan leaned against Dong Qin. He was already powerless to argue with them. He said in a low voice, "Let's stop arguing for today. I'll go back and rest for a day. We'll talk again after I recover my strength. Boss Long, can you undo my restrictions?" "No. I can let you go back to your room, but I won't undo your restrictions. You can experience the three of them again. Then you'll know how good I am," Long Zai said calmly. Long Zai was not afraid of comparisons. As long as Yi Qinghan experienced it again, he would understand that he was far superior to the three women. Even if they had more numbers, it would not be a problem. "Humph. Afraid of you?" Emperor Yi and the other two snorted at the same time. They accepted Long Zai's challenge. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. If he were to be served by these three women, he would probably be crippled. "You guys go ahead and chat. I'll go back and rest for a while." Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth. Without divine power, he was just like a mortal. How could he withstand being served by these four women? Yi Qinghan dragged his tired body and broke free from Dong Qin's support. He leaned against the wall and walked towards the Sky Room 1. Renhuang Yi, Violet Deity, and the other two looked at each other, and then followed him back. Their ears were a little red, and it was obvious that they were ready to let go of their worries and go all out. They could lose anything, but they could lose face, let alone three supreme-grade beings who had lost to another supreme-grade being. Chapter 845. In the best room, Yi Qinghan was lying flat on the bed without any strength in his limbs. He couldn't even adjust his breathing. Emperor Yi, Zixian, and Dongqin entered the room and closed the door. They pounced on Yi Qinghan and took off his shoes and clothes. Emperor Yi even took the initiative and reached his hand in. Yi Qinghan's head was groggy. As soon as he laid down, he felt sleepy. However, as soon as he closed his eyes, he was jolted awake. Looking at the three beauties, he panicked on the spot. "Wait, what are you doing?" Yi Qinghan asked in surprise as he moved back. "Don't resist. I want you to know that I was born with the ability to serve men." Dongqin said angrily. "The three of us serving you is enough for you to be proud for the rest of your life." Zixian was embarrassed, but the three of them were already like this. Since they couldn't lose to Long Zai, they might as well give it a try. Emperor Yi felt very wronged. This was the first time he was so willing to share Yi Qinghan with others and defeat Long Zai for him. Because she really didn't have the ability to serve men. She didn't have any tricks and could only rely on numbers to win. Yi Qinghan almost broke down. If this was any other time, he would be happy, but he really couldn't be happy now. If he continued to play like this, would he still be alive? He was no longer an existence who possessed the five-elemental Taoist body and the support of powerful divine power. Now that his divine power was sealed and he couldn't even use the five elemental elements, he was like a mortal being tortured by four powerful and supreme-grade women for a day and a night. It would be strange if he didn't die. "I beg you. Spare me, I'm about to die. Don't mess around." This was the first time Yi Qinghan had ever begged for mercy so humbly. Moreover, he was begging for mercy on such a matter. He had the urge to slap himself in the face. At this moment, no one wanted to raise their head and puff out their chest more than he did. He wanted to regroup and regain his vigor, but he couldn't get it up. "Are you looking down on us?" Dongqin glared at Yi Qinghan threateningly and questioned him. Emperor Yi thought that Yi Qinghan really despised him, so he looked at Yi Qinghan with an aggrieved expression. "I wouldn't dare. Which of the three of you isn't the best? Which man wouldn't want to possess her? But I'm really powerless right now. You were all eavesdropping last night. Please let me go." Yi Qinghan smiled wryly. If news of this were to spread, he would become the laughingstock of the entire universe. He had been pestered by three supreme-grade women, and yet he couldn't get it up. Instead, he had taken the initiative to beg for mercy. How could he still have the face to live in the future? Yi Qinghan felt like he was going crazy when he saw the fiery eyes of the three demonesses and their writhing bodies. These four women were probably the best description for a torturous vixen. "Give me a day to recover. I'll definitely satisfy you. Is that okay?" Yi Qinghan explained helplessly. "Then tell us who you're going to choose." Dongqin demanded. "I'm not going to choose Long Zai. I just want to know why she's doing this." Yi Qinghan lay on the bed helplessly and looked at the three women riding him. He had completely given up on struggling. He couldn't break free now anyway. "I'm also curious. She's doing this for no benefit at all. Why would a beast in human clothing like you take advantage of her?" Zixian said in astonishment. "Let me figure it out first. Be quiet for a while and let me rest." Yi Qinghan wanted to turn around and break free from their restraints. He felt uncomfortable being ridden by the three women like this. A soundproof barrier had been set up in room 1. Although Long Zai's cultivation was powerful, she couldn't eavesdrop unless she forcefully broke the barrier. At this moment, she lowered her head and leaned against the edge of the bed. "I'm going to break the bond between these four and break them apart. However, I can't completely offend them. I need them to help me willingly." A strange expression appeared on Long Zai's face as she thought to herself, "I didn't expect this Yi Qinghan's will to be so firm. I've spent a lot of effort, but he's actually paying attention to my intentions. To reverse time and space on the Mirage and recreate the scene of the battle all those years ago, I need Zixian's blood essence and Dongqin's soul. However, with these four working together, I really can't guarantee victory. I have to break them apart. Long Zai muttered to herself. However, she revealed a shocking idea. The bloodline of the Purple Emperor could trace back to the origin and reverse time and space. The soul of the celestial battle body was even more wondrous. However, it was fortunate that she didn't know that Emperor Yi was the inheritor of the Chaos Dragon. Otherwise, who knew what crazy things she would have done. There were only 2 days left until the arrival of spring. The sky gradually darkened and it was night time again. Yi Qinghan had slept for an entire day and still hadn't woken up. Emperor Yi, Dongqin, and the other two looked at each other and began to press on towards Yi Qinghan. They began to strip him of his clothes in a flurry. Yi Qinghan was still sleeping. He had never fallen asleep without any pressure before. He felt that someone was turning him over. When he opened his hazy eyes, he found that he had been stripped down to his underwear. His entire body was sore and powerless. He felt like he was about to ascend to the heavens. Even now, he still hadn't recovered from last night's state. He couldn't withstand the torment of the three at all. My 3 great aunts, please spare me this time. If you feel bored, then work together to open my seal. I'm just a mortal right now. How can I withstand your torment? Yi Qinghan begged helplessly. I've tried a few times, but it didn't work. That woman's cultivation is too powerful. Her methods are very precise. Unless you or she opens it, it's very easy for your soul to be damaged if we force it open. Your 5 elemental Tao body might even dissipate, Emperor Yi said, aggrieved. I'll go find her. Yi Qinghan was helpless. He struggled to sit up, but the 3 women held him down. No. You want to go back and continue being served by her. You're not trying to open the seal at all. Emperor Yi glared at Yi Qinghan. He was so anxious that he was about to cry. Yi Qinghan opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. I also don't think we should let you go back. Isn't that the same as sending a sheep to the tiger's den? Even if you really want her to open the seal, I don't think she'll do it. She'll continue to force herself on you tonight until you completely submit to her, Dongqin said thoughtfully. Yi Qinghan was going crazy. He had never felt so powerless before. His reputation had been ruined by 4 women. That night, Emperor Yi and the others didn't allow Yi Qinghan to go find Long Zai. However, Long Zai would occasionally make teasing noises next door. Meanwhile, Emperor Yi and the others would touch him up and down. They didn't even have the slightest shyness left. Roar, Yi Qinghan let out a bestial roar. Dragon's blood roar. If he didn't explode after being tortured like this, then he wouldn't be a man. You 4 women, that's enough. If you have the guts, open my seal. I won't let the 4 of you beg for mercy. I'll kneel and beg for mercy. From now on, I'll follow your lead. Yi Qinghan roared. Kakik. I like challenging things. I do dare, but I don't know if the 3 of them dare. Long Zai's jade-like hand slid across her creamy, jade-like leg as she taunted arrogantly. Chapter 846. Long Zai continued to provoke the 3 beauties, forcing them to make a decision. Lose. Don't dare. There was no such word in the dictionary of the 3 beauties. There would never be a bottom line or principle when it came to provocations between the best of the best. Emperor Yi gritted his teeth and agreed. In order to protect the love of his heart, he was going to give it his all. Yi Qinghan's entire body was trembling. He wanted nothing more than to trick Long Zai into opening the seal on his body. Without divine power, he was nothing more than a piece of trash. After resting for the entire day, his legs were still weak, and he didn't have the slightest right to speak. The feeling of not having control over his own life was simply too unpleasant. Long Zai didn't know that Yi Qinghan didn't want to do it, nor did he want to cooperate. He didn't care about the idea of 4 women serving him at the same time, so he opened Yi Qinghan's restrictions on the spot. Divine power flowed through his body, and Yi Qinghan finally regained control of his physical body. The soul-suppressing orb protected his soul tightly. He took a few steps back and summoned Crazy Zhong to block his chest. He looked at the 4 women warily, as if he was the little beauty and the 4 people in front of him were the hungry wolves. His pitiful appearance made the 4 beauties laugh. "Oh, are you trying to resist? You don't want 4 of the best to serve you?" Long Zai teased with her arms crossed. Gulp, Yi Qinghan swallowed. This wariness was not an act. He really didn't want to be entangled with the 4 beauties. The feeling of his legs going weak was not good. "Stop messing around. If you keep messing around, I'm going to get angry," Yi Qinghan said with a serious expression. "Can you bear to attack me? Men are indeed heartless. Last night, you took the initiative to get entangled with me. Today, you want to make a move on me." Sigh. Long Zai pretended to be delicate. Her delicate and pitiful appearance was pitiful. If Emperor Yi and the others had not seen her forcing Yi Qinghan last night, they would have thought that Yi Qinghan was the heartless man. "Boss Long, can't we talk things over? Was there a need to resort to such means? I don't believe that you're doing this for fun. You must have your own motives. Tell me, and we'll think of a way together. There's no need to scheme against each other." Yi Qinghan furrowed his brows as he looked at Long Zai's slender legs and naked body, but he wasn't in the mood to admire it. Once a woman like this put in the effort to seduce a man, no one could stop her. Long Zai's expression turned serious as he looked at Yi Qinghan. He didn't expect that not only did his ability fail to affect Yi Qinghan's mind, but it had even cost him his body. If it were any other man, a few words from Long Zai would be enough to get a large number of them willing to throw themselves at him. There would even be plenty of chief gods who would be willing to take action if Long Zai called for help. The humiliation of her failure made her angry. Yes, angry. Not angry that her plan had failed, but angry that she had spent so much effort to please a man. Not only did that man not willingly follow her and become her slave, but he had also tricked her into undoing the seal on her body. This kind of humiliation was even more humiliating than the failure of her plan. At least for a woman like Long Zai, it was unacceptable. "Do you know how many men have touched my body?" Long Zai asked coldly. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He didn't want to know either. However, with her enchanting skills, there should be quite a few. "You must think that there are a lot of people, right? That's why you think I'm dirty and disdain me. But let me tell you, you're the second one. The first one is already dead." Long Zai's voice suddenly rose as her killing intent surged. Yi Qinghan's hair stood on end. He felt that this was one of the strongest people he had ever met. Aside from the second sorcerer, who was unfathomable, no one else could possibly stand shoulder to shoulder with her. "I hate hypocrites like you the most. Do you know how my first man died?" Long Zai swept her gaze over Yi Qinghan's group of 4 as she asked in a low voice. Yi Qinghan shook his head and took another step back, clenching his fists tightly. He felt that Long Zai was about to explode. Once she went crazy, she wouldn't care about anything. "I used my saber to slice him open bit by bit, but I suppressed his soul in his knowledge sea and personally burned him to death. I burned him for an entire 100 years before his soul was finally tortured to death. I even gave his flesh to several vicious beasts, ha ha ha." Long Zai laughed bitterly, revealing 2 rows of pearly white teeth. It was actually quite sinister. Yi Qinghan sucked in a breath of cold air. Before, he had thought that Long Zai was a bit crazy, but now he felt that she wasn't just crazy. She was practically schizophrenic. He lied to me. He lied to me, saying that he could trace the origin and rewind everything that happened in Huahai City so that I could understand what happened. Unfortunately, he only wanted me, so he ended up in a miserable state. Don't think that I'm easy to bully. You were indeed seduced by me last night, but in the end, when you couldn't take it anymore, you could have gone back to room 1 to vent your anger on Emperor Yi. However, you didn't even test me, so how did you know that I wouldn't let you go? It only shows that you want me, so don't make excuses for yourself. Now that you've eaten everything, do you think that it's all my fault? Long Zai asked coldly. Yi Qinghan was at a loss for words. At that time, he had already lost his mind from the teasing and only wanted to vent his anger. How could he have thought of leaving? But now that Long Zai said this, he had no reason to refute. You want to trace the origin and know what happened on the day of Huahai City's destruction. For this, you must achieve your goal at all costs, even if you have to use your own body as a stake. You're the descendant of Flowerlight Sovereign? Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. Yes. Since you've guessed it, I won't hide it from you. Didn't you want to know my goal? Then I'll get straight to the point. I want to separate the 4 of you and defeat you one by one. I want to obtain the eye and blood of those with other pupils, as well as the soul of the celestial battle body. I want to use your blood and Emperor Ye's blood to activate a forbidden art to reverse time and trace the origin. I want to know how my grandfather died and who killed him. How did Huahai City, which was at its peak, fall? Long Zai said coldly. No longer concealing his killing intent, Long Zai pressed forward. His anger stemmed from the fact that he had been deceived in the past, so he simply gave up on his plan and prepared to forcefully carry it out. The otherworldly pupil lineage's eyes and blood chi energy were extremely important to tracing one's origins. Back when Violet Immortal was still a demigod, she had been able to clearly track down assassins on the elite leaderboard. From this, one could see how terrifying her eyes were. Zixian didn't expect Long Zai's target to be him. He coldly snorted and said, "Fellow Taoist, you're overthinking things. Once my eyes leave my body, they lose their function. No one can use them. Even if you use my essence blood to reconstruct a golden body, it'll be useless. I didn't think that a grand sovereign would act without considering the consequences. If anyone could use them, our lineage would have long gone extinct." Chapter 847. Dong Qin snorted disdainfully at Long Zai's idea. It was unrealistic to want to capture her soul alive. Yi Qinghan also didn't think that Long Zai's goal would be so insane. You're even willing to offer up your body for this? Are you a woman who has seen through the mortal world or a naive little girl? So childish. Preposterous. There are many ways for you to investigate what happened back then. Is there a need to use such a shameless method? Yi Qinghan asked with furrowed brows. Fuck off. You're still trying to act innocent after taking advantage of me? That's how cheap men are. Why didn't you call me preposterous last night? Long Zai asked angrily. First of all, I have to admit that you're far better at serving men than anyone else. I believe that even a woman would have a reaction to you, let alone a man like me. How am I supposed to endure this? Yi Qinghan was exasperated. He really didn't want to fight to the death with her. Women were always a little confused when they were praised, especially when it came to their own advantages. Long Zai's resentment gradually dissipated after seeing Yi Qinghan admit that she was better than Emperor Yi and the others. Emperor Yi, Dong Qin, and Zixian all shot a glance at Yi Qinghan. Although they didn't want to admit it, the 3 of them really did have a reaction to Long Zai's teasing last night. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given up their dignity to strip Yi Qinghan naked today. Humph. I don't need you to admit it. Long Zai harumphed coldly. How about this? Calm down first. As for finding out the reason behind Sea of Flowers City's destruction, there's still a way. There's no need to fight with us, right? If we cooperate, we'll benefit, and if we fight, we'll both suffer. I'm guessing that you're not confident, so you want to control me and then divide the four of us, right? Yi Qinghan said bluntly. Long Zai lowered her head and didn't say anything. She clenched her jade-like arms and thought about what she had done wrong. Yi Qinghan suggested, didn't fellow Taoist Dong Qin say that Sovereign God Flowing Light ended up meeting with Ghost Taoist Flowing Void and the other experts and captured him? Shouldn't he know what happened back then? Long Zai dispiritedly sat down, dejected. He said helplessly, Ghost Taoist Flowing Light isn't just a lone cultivator. He has an enormous force behind him called the Six Gods Tao sect. It has a legacy from the primal chaos era and controls the laws of time, space, light, darkness, lightning, and life. Of the 3,600 sovereigns back then, the Six Gods Tao sect occupied 6 of them. Their legacy has never been broken. My grandfather, Sovereign God Flowing Light, is the sovereign of time. Ghost Taoist Flowing Light controls space, and the godhead of the giant god of primal chaos has never been lost. Thus, the Six Gods Tao sect originally had 6 sovereigns. 12. But after so many years, how could a single lineage have given birth to a single sovereign? Ghost Taoist Flowing Light, on the other hand, has a wide circle of friends. He's lived for so many years and knows at least 70 to 80 sovereigns, if not 100. Many of them are close friends who have gone through thick and thin. I alone would never be able to fight him in my entire life. Yi Qinghan did not know much about the concept of sovereigns. He only knew that there had only been 3,500 sovereigns back then. He did not expect that after so many years of development, so many more sovereigns had appeared. Their abilities might not be comparable to the giant god of primal chaos, but they were far, far more powerful than half-step sovereigns. Ghost Taoist Flowing Light controlled the godhead of the giant god of primal chaos. His combat strength was even more powerful than Long Zai's and could not be defeated by force. It was likely that people from both camps would want to rope him in. The Yin fell silent. If Long Zai wanted revenge, he would have to expose Ghost Taoist Flowing Light's crimes back then. There had to be evidence so that the Six Gods Tao sect would not side with Ghost Taoist Flowing Light. After all, Sovereign God Flowing Light was also a member of the Six Gods Tao sect. Ghost Taoist Flowing Light had colluded with outsiders to kill his junior brother for his own selfish desires. Everyone had the right to punish him. If Long Zai wanted revenge, he had to make Ghost Taoist Flowing Light betray him. Ghost Taoist Flowing Light had lived for so many years. He had probably covered up the truth of what had happened back then. It was absolutely unrealistic to try to beat around the bush and pry any information out of him. Long Zai had thought of everything he could think of. Otherwise, he would not have put his body on the line for the sake of revenge. I was just born back then, but I can still vaguely remember my mother's warmth. However, not long after they sent me away, my entire clan was wiped out. I was raised by a ferocious wolf. How could I forget this grudge? I would not hesitate to pay any price for it. That's why I was able to endure the ghost wind here for tens of millions of years, let alone a mere physical body. Long Zai lowered his head and howled. His eyes were slightly red, and his fingertips could not help but grip the table. There were even scratches on the metal table. Based on this detail alone, he was indeed no different from a wolf. Yi Qinghan was suddenly so ashamed that he wanted to crawl into a hole and hide his face. He had actually taken her body under such circumstances. It seemed that he was no different from the man who had first deceived her back then. Although Zixian and Dong Qin were not willing to interfere in the affairs of the world, they were also compassionate at this moment. They really did not want Long Zai to fight alone. My cultivation is not enough to trace the origin of what happened back then. It has been too long. Unless I can cultivate to the peak of the Master God realm, Zixian said truthfully. What if we join forces to support you? Yi Qinghan asked. Long Zai suddenly raised his head and looked at Zixian. He asked in a trembling voice, "What if I join forces? Can we trace the origin and restore what happened back then for the world to see?" Zixian hesitated. He did not know how to answer. His physical body could not withstand so much god power. Long Zai thought that Zixian was still angry and unwilling to help. He immediately knelt down and prostrated himself on the ground. He sobbed and said, "Please forgive my ignorance last night. I beg you to help me. After I get my revenge, I will do anything for you." "No. It's definitely not your fault. It's just that my cultivation is limited, and my clansmen will not help. If you want me to help, I have to reach the Master God realm. Otherwise, my physical body will not be able to withstand it. My eyes and soul will also not be able to withstand the pressure and will be destroyed." Zixian avoided Long Zai's kneeling and explained. It was not that easy for Zixian to become a master god with the bloodline of the overgod chaotic bloodline. If she wanted to advance quickly, she would need the help of the celestial treasure battle body. At the very least, she would need the help of the spirit-devouring divine parrot. That was why she had been entangled with Yi Qinghan in the beginning. Zixian looked at Dong Qin. It was all up to her now. If she did not agree, it would be impossible to trace the origin without at least 10,000 years. After all, the godhood she wanted to condense was a supreme godhood, and her cultivation level had to be above the master god realm. Dong Qin really did not want to interfere with the affairs of the world, especially the matter of the 21 supreme gods. If she interfered, the entire trajectory would be broken. "Taoist Dong Qin, we have known each other for so long. We can be considered friends. If you are willing to help, just let us know if you need anything in the future. My son and I will do our best to help," Yi Qinghan said with cupped fists. Yi Qinghan owed Zixian a favor, so he had to speak up for her, hoping that he could persuade Dong Qin. Emperor Yi was even more direct. He snorted and said, If you don't help, don't even think about getting the Sun Moon Divine Sword. I won't give it to you even if it is a piece of scrap metal." Chapter 848. Emperor Ye's pressure made Dong Qin helpless. The Sun Moon Godly Sword was the natal divine weapon of the first generation of the 10 great battle constitutions. There were only 10 of them in the world, and no more. If she gave up, she would not get a second one. "Alright, I'll try my best to help, but we have to wait until the assembly begins. Although I have the celestial battle constitution, it doesn't mean that I can create divine items out of thin air and make people advance. Otherwise, I would have become a king god long ago. Why wait until now?" Dong Qin said helplessly. Dong Qin agreed to help. Not only was Long Zai relieved, but so was Zixian. Time was running out, and it would be too late if they did not break through. Yi Qinghan had returned the favor. Once this was over, he would leave quickly. If he stayed with these 4 women, he would become skin and bones sooner or later. "Since we've agreed, don't tease me anymore. Otherwise, if anyone dares to tease me again, I won't give them face. I won't lose out anyway. And I won't take responsibility." Yi Qinghan's aura changed, and he was a little angry. These 2 days, they had made him suffer. When Long Zai saw that the 4 of them were willing to help, he could not help but laugh through his tears. They did not act like a king god at all. Perhaps they grew up in a wolf's den and were not scheming at all. "If you want it, I won't refuse you," Long Zai said, pretending to be seductive. "I'm not afraid of you. Who was the one who knelt down and begged for mercy today?" Dong Qin snorted. Zixian and Emperor Yi smiled but didn't say anything. They looked at Yi Qinghan with disdain in their eyes. Thinking about the results of today's battle, they knew that it would never happen again in the future. For exquisite women were pestering a man, yet he still put on a pitiful look and used Zhong Kuang to threaten them to stay away. If word of this got out, he wouldn't be able to face anyone. Yi Qinghan was flustered and exasperated. He threatened, "Today's matter ends here. Don't mention it again, or I'll turn against you." "Haha, why don't you turn against me? I'd like to see you kneeling on the bed and begging for mercy like a little girl. That pitiful look is really pleasing to the eye." Dong Qin thought of Yi Qinghan's appearance in the afternoon and immediately sneered without any integrity. Yi Qinghan's hand was trembling as he held on to his saber. He was truly infuriated. His illustrious reputation had been destroyed in a single day. He was truly afraid of being humiliated this afternoon. How could a mere mortal be a match for 4 demonesses? Puqi, Emperor Yi and the other 2 could not help but laugh when they thought about it, especially Emperor Yi. He had never seen Yi Qinghan so embarrassed in his life. This mockery completely infuriated Yi Qinghan. With a wave of his hand, Zhong Kuang disappeared. With a flash of his figure, he grabbed Dong Qin in his hand and said with an evil smile, "You think I'm pitiful and laughable? Today, I'll let you know what it means to be pitiful and laughable." Dong Qin immediately panicked. Looking at Yi Qinghan's aggressive eyes, she shouted, "What are you doing? Let go of me." In terms of physical strength, who could be more ferocious than Yi Qinghan? So what if she had one of the 10 great physiques? Her physical body was in Yi Qinghan's grasp. He could do whatever he wanted with her. Swish! Yi Qinghan dragged Dong Qin and leapt up. He appeared in front of the door of the Sky Room 1 on the 2nd floor. He kicked the door open and tore apart the defensive battle robe. Slap, 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 Yi Qinghan extended his hand and slapped her a few times on the back of her head. The sound was crisp and powerful. "Ah! Yi Qinghan! Ah! Aya! You bastard! Ah!" Slap, 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 Yi Qinghan did not go easy on her. He slapped her soft flesh with all his strength. Dong Qin's screams echoed throughout the entire inn. The more Dong Qin screamed, the more merry Yi Qinghan slapped her. Dong Qin was so ashamed that she buried her head in her blanket. When Yi Qinghan made contact with her, she felt as though she had been struck by lightning. An electric current flowed through her, and there was a vague feeling. Her screams turned into a different kind of sound. She even took the initiative to welcome him. This made Yi Qinghan freeze in place. What the hell was this? Was she a masochist? The 3 demonesses downstairs were also stunned. The door was not closed, so they could see and hear everything clearly. Dong Qin's moans could not be hidden at all. Would there be such a feeling when he hit her? The 3 of them had never tried it before. Zixian was a virgin. Emperor Yi had never been hit by Yi Qinghan before. As for Long Zai, she was a complete pervert. Who would dare to do such a thing to her? Dong Qin only reacted when Yi Qinghan stopped slapping her. She reached out to pull the blanket and curled up in it. She glared angrily at Yi Qinghan and roared, "Yi Qinghan, remember this. I will definitely return this favor 100-fold. It would have been better if she did not threaten him." Once she did, Yi Qinghan's anger, which had gradually dissipated, rose again. He tore the blanket apart and dragged her out. He beat her fiercely without any mercy. The crisp sound echoed in the room. At first, Dong Qin was still shouting in anger. But although she was angry, her body was very honest. She was actually wet. Yes, wet. Dong Qin was afraid of being discovered by Yi Qinghan, so she did not dare to move. She quickly begged for mercy, "Yi Qinghan, I was wrong," but Yi Qinghan still did not stop. Looking at her red buttocks and listening to Dong Qin's indescribable moans, he became a little excited and kept slapping her. "Brother Yi! Brother Yi! Ah! Oh! I was wrong. Woo woo! Dong Qin wanted to cry but had no tears. She regretted provoking this beast. Only then did Yi Qinghan let go. He snorted coldly, "This is just a simple lesson. If you dare to tease me again, don't blame me for going overboard." Dong Qin was extremely ashamed. Her face was red, but she did not dare to move. She was afraid that Yi Qinghan would discover her wet blanket. She lay on the ground, her perfect buttocks aimed at Yi Qinghan. Her creamy skin was enough to make a saint turn into a beast. Yi Qinghan did not dare to continue. Otherwise, he really could not hold back and it would be over. Yi Qinghan turned and left the room. Zixian saw that his second-in-command was on the verge of coming out. His face immediately turned red and he took several steps back. Long Zai smiled and thought to herself, "This Yi Qinghan's endurance is really extraordinary." If it were any other man, they would have taken advantage of the situation. Emperor Yi would never leave him, but he still held back. "I want it too. Come and hit me," Long Zai said provocatively. Yi Qinghan's hand trembled. He looked at Long Zai and said angrily, "If I could beat you, I would have done it long ago. I don't need you to remind me." "Ha ha ha, I won't fight back. Come and hit me. Hit me with all your strength." Long Zai twisted her snake-like waist, and her bone-melting voice reverberated towards Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan almost died on the spot. He couldn't help but squat down and think to himself, "This damned woman. She couldn't have been a vixen in her previous life, right?" Emperor Yi looked at Yi Qinghan's pain. In addition, he had been in a period of desire for Yi Qinghan for the past 2 days. He gave up his pride and ran back to the room with Yi Qinghan. He said to Dong Qin, "I'm going to rest with Master. Do you want to go out or watch from the room?" You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.